A man looks into the bathroom mirror and asks himself who he is, as he sees a whole other reflection. One side says that he's Lee Hoyol, and the other, Granfell Claudi Arpaeus Romeo, the successor of a once great clan. While making some tea, and also drinking it, he thinks that he unfortunately became the character he made 12 years ago, when he was in his second year of middle school. Second year, precisely. When he finished, he was extremely happy and quite obsessed. But now, he regrets it, as this character was made at the height of his puberty, and this entire situation is because of that one game. History of the Arcana continent. One, if not the best, virtual game and another world. Until service was no longer available, it was never topped by another game, making it a game that holds a legendary status. However, the day service for Arcana was stopped, along with the news that the CEO, Raymond, had gone missing. Arcana seemingly appeared in the real world, out of nowhere. Breaks in reality also began appearing throughout the world, and the monsters from the game made their appearance. That was when everyone thought the world was ending. But people were assimilated with their in-game characters. That is when players appeared throughout the world. Not only did they have skills from the game, they were also able to defeat the once thought invincible monsters and save the world. That is how players got the title of heroes. Naturally, he also fantasized about becoming one of these players, but soon he realized that even if he were to awaken his powers, he wouldn't be that famous. The cost of buying a single virtual reality machines was tens of millions of won, and even renting one would cost too much for them. His father apologized at the time, saying that he thought he would at least let him play as many games as he wanted. This is when his father's business collapsed fully. His sister tried to comfort him, and the mother tries to take the blame, which she doesn't like. This is when Lee was faced with reality and its grim truth. He had no choice but to quit Arcana early. However, if he would have known this would have happened, he would have done anything to play. Since he only managed to play for a few months, his stats are extremely bad, and even though his power was awakened, he wouldn't have wanted to spawn as a character he made while going through puberty. The outside him comments on the tea, noting that it's quite good, making inside him go crazy. Granfell Claudi Arpaeus Romeo, a character that Lee made during the height of his puberty, and also a character he was very invested in. His story goes as follows. Granfell was a successor for a great family, however. It was massacred by a demon, and he was left alive and alone. In order to get his revenge, he made the decision to become a demon hunter. This was a very cringy story he played around with, and also something he obsessed over while in middle school, which he laments now. In other circumstances, these memories would have been just something to laugh at, however. As a grown man, this is just plain embarrassing. Granfell says that he missed having memories like this, making Lee cringe and demanding he stop speaking in that weird manner. What is he going to do at work? Will he even be able to function as a member of society moving forward? If he meets his boss, who likes to pick on him whenever he has the chance, Granfell will certainly do something that will get him fired. He wonders what to do, and Granfell notes that nobles should not bow down in the face of adversity. Everything that he tries to say comes out completely differently. Is this really how it is to assimilate with the in-game character? He remembers that most people said it wasn't a large difference, so why did he become like this? Taking into consideration that he can't work anywhere like this, he has no choice but to become a full-time player. But he doesn't remember much of Arcana, as he last played it over 10 years ago. He gets on the computer as first, he needs to search things up, since he doesn't know what it really takes to become a player. The money that ranker players receive after eliminating high-level ruptures is in the hundreds of millions. However, since it's all dependent on risking life and limb on the battlefield, it's all pretty useless information. Not only is his own life more important than some money, Granfell also doesn't agree, as he has no need for material goods. He has tasted from abundance once already. For this reason, he holds no real greed. That is why he needs to take a look and see what demon hunters do these days. He is quite surprised to find only 2 pages worth of information. And besides, it's not even wiki pages, it's just news articles. He's quite shocked when he finds out that Akshan and everyone in it was killed with 0 survivors to speak of. The Akshan Bas was the only town where one could become a demon hunter, and the holy land of the demon hunters. Was that Akshan really destroyed? There is just no way. It's not like nobody plays the role anymore, but because the role was basically deleted from existence. However, Demon hunters were also quite useless 10 years ago, and they had low stats and a really awkward build path, with even their skills being extremely weak. And since leveling through monsters was quite though, they were dependent on the experience given through quests. But when they confronted demons, they were the experts, and no other class could compare. However, demons usually appeared in demon hunter quests only, and most of the quests garnered a reputation, as they were very grindy. Not only was the role pointless most of the time, demon hunter was in general considered the most useless class in the game. But the role being different, and not being able to proceed to the next class, are entirely different things. This situation is just plain bad, as all the NPCs that thought skills are now dead. He starts reading a chat log, where people are discussing something regarding demon hunters. That's when a comment grabs his attention, which says that new demons were added in an update. He reads about the reality update, which made demons spawn as normal mobs. And due to this, players' injuries have skyrocketed, due to the strong debuffs. Even level 200 players struggle. Lee thinks that if demons really appeared in reality, why haven't the demon hunters taken care of them? Just maybe he's the only demon hunter left after Akshan fell, but if that's the case, should he really take the initiative here? Even with his 10-year setback? There is nothing saying that the demons he knew are the same ones appearing right now, as a lot of things can happen in 10 years. Very high-level players are struggling with them, so what can he do? Suddenly, his past self calls him weak, as he, the great Grandfell, does not run from mere demons. That is his pride, after all. No matter what temptation or taunts demons send his way, they will never hurt the pride of Grandfell. He thinks that it's about time he did something, and Grandfell notes that this was just pointless thinking, as there is no need for hesitation. Thousands die because of demons, but he promised to send them back to hell. Several years passed after the Great Cataclysm, and many things were destroyed as a result. But humans are resourceful creatures, and were able to get back on their feet. Life came back to normal, as nothing happened, and people quickly adjusted to this new world. However, where light is, darkness is bound to appear, and the negative emotions of the newly adjusted people made great food for the devil and other evil creatures. A man is possessed entirely, and sends something to a party that holds a devilish figure. The party leader of a group, who goes by the name of Nam Cheolman and is the tanker, notes that the last member of their party will arrive soon. Grandfell arrives at the scene, and Cheolman presents him as the last party member. They both exchange greetings, but Grandfell's attention is on the rupture, which only players can see, and it has no affect on normal people, who can just walk through it. He would have been one of those people, had he not awakened. More importantly, this dungeon is fit for levels 35 to 40. Not bad place to start for a level 55 like himself. He also looked into the average level of the players that are going through this dungeon, and they all average around level 200. That's a level that he's not even close to at the moment, so he needs to work hard and level up fast. Thankfully, high-level players aren't the only ones who awaken, so he was able to find a party with a similar level to him. They all introduced themselves. The close-range deal tanker is named Han Seong-wook. The close-range damage dealer is named Choi Jong-hoon, and the magic damage dealer is named Seo Jong-yeon. Cheolman says that considering the progression rate, another party must have gone in, so they will do so as well. They will prepare for a bit, so they will go inside exactly 5 minutes from now. Grandfell looks at the destruction progress, which stands at 19.8%. This is called the progress rate, and once it hits 100%, the rupture breaks down, and the monsters are let loose into the real world. Therefore, players are allowed to freely raid the ruptures, as only they are able to even approach this ticking time bomb, full of beasts. Lee thinks that everyone is really friendly, which he is glad for, so he should say something to the party member too. As an only son with 3 sisters, he had to watch out every day in order to survive the great sister wars that would often occur. So going with the atmosphere is a piece of cake for him. Grandfell says that they need not worry, as he is here. Lee laments ever trying to speak, and the party ignores him fully. With his pride hurt, Lee just decided to not speak anymore, as he can't bear much more of this. They enter the Knoll underground storage, the food storage to be precise. Inside, it looks just like a regular station, although broken, and with blood scattered everywhere. The party arrives at the stairs, and Jong-yeon notes that she doesn't see any signs of gnolls, despite the name of this place. Cheolman says that a party definitely came through before them, but they needn't worry, as they would just take their share if they just take the right route. The party is glad to have such dependable leader, but Granfell notices that something is off. They find some gnolls, and Kjolman urges everyone to get ready for battle. However, he charges in instantly, which the others take as him simply being eager to fight. Granfell thinks that their entire combination is a pretty normal one to go with, but it's all over the place, as the tanker is aggroing the monsters instead of protecting his party. The deal tanker is doing most of the defense, and the mage is doing the most dealing. Is this really how people do it these days? Well, he can't complain, as he's pretty useless at the moment. He opens his inventory and spots that he has a few weapons, but nothing useful, so he should fight as little as humanly possible until he finds a suitable weapon. Suddenly, an arrow comes from his side, and he notices that countless gnolls are standing in the shadows, ready to pierce them with arrows. Granfell warns the party about this, and the gnolls start coming out. They desperately try to defend themselves, and Kjolman just leaves. Jong-hoon demands he come back, but in that moment of anger, he had let himself wide open for an attack, which a gnoll takes advantage of. The blade almost touches him, but an arrow kills the gnoll in one shot. That arrow was from Granfell, who notes that this beast needs training, and it doesn't really suit him, but punishment is necessary, and he must be the one to do it. Jong-hoon thanks him, although he's quite weirded out by the way he speaks. The party struggles to keep the gnolls in front, and two manage to slip out and go straight for Jong-yeon, who doesn't know what to do. Granfell urges her to calm down, as he will get rid of the ones that dare approach, so she should cast a strong spell, even if it takes a bit to cast. She says that she will, and he gets to shooting. Jong-hoon asks how much until the casting is done, as they are being overwhelmed. Eventually, she manages to fully cast it, and demands that everyone get out of the way. A myriad of fireballs come out of the spell circle, and they create a large explosion, which seems to take out all of the gnolls. Jong-yeon asks Granfell if he's okay, who notes that she should worry about her teammates. He looks at the dead gnolls, and wonders if he can get that expensive arrow back. Jong-yeon gives Songwook a healing potion, and Jong-hoon is extremely mad. He rushes up to Kjolman, and asks just what the hell he was doing. He can understand that he didn't know about the ones who hid themselves, but why did he decide to not help? He basically walked them into a death trap, so he should explain himself, right this instant. Kjolman smirks, and starts laughing uncontrollably, and very loudly. Jong-yeon says that this is not in any way funny, and if it weren't for his famous brother, he wouldn't be worth anything. Does he really think that he's all that great? A bastard like him? The lights suddenly all go out, and Kjolman notes that if he's really asking if this is funny, of course it is, as how can it not be, when a bunch of moronic fools are struggling in front of him like this? Granfell's natural enemy skill activates, and it's revealed that this guy is a demon. Kjolman finds it funny that they realize so late, but then again, they are extremely dumb anyway. The party wonders what he is talking about, but before long, they are all affected by his skills, and they see something which they fear the most. In Songwook's case, he sees his party members pleading for help while their skin melts. Their mentalities hit ground bottom, and they are all affected by the fear status. Kjolman laughs at these pathetic humans, who are groveling in the illusion of fear. Suddenly, Granfell charges in, and almost manages to strike him. Kjolman notes that he must not care for this particular human, as if he dies, this human will die as well. Granfell thinks that piercing his armor isn't a possibility right now, so he should focus on the gaps for now. Kjolman attacks, but misses, giving Granfell the opportunity to attack. His skill Natural Enemy activates once again, as its battle power rapidly increases due to the presence of a demon. This attack also hits his armor, but now, it cracked. Kjolman charges in without a care in the world, and notes that humans are the fake creatures to exist. Earlier, he was friends with this human, but now, he wants to kill him. Granfell just slashes his face open, causing him to wail from the pain. He was slashed by a mere human? But he feels it from this distinct pain, that he was slashed with silver. Granfell demands he not talk to him, as he doesn't talk with his prey. Kjolman looks down, and wonders where it all went wrong, for it to become like this. He remembers the time where his brother told him to quit going into ruptures and become an analyst at his guild. He knew he did this out of worry, but he didn't want to live like a loser all of his life. Sometime later, he was also being mocked by a few goons who knew about his brother, and urges him to not be a disappointment to such a great and powerful brother. All he wanted was for his brother to be proud of him. That's when the imp came and gave him a hand. All he needs to do is watch from the back lines while he works. That is how he was possessed, and he watched his party almost die because of himself and the imp who has possessed him. With his mentality so low, he couldn't hope of getting out of the imp's grasp. However, Granfell had awoken him as the imp was weakened by his constant attacks. He screams for the pain and demands he stop this, as if he continues this human will also die. Does he really not care at all? Does he want to be labeled as a murdered for the rest of his life? Granfell looks at him and notes that if this is his pride, he gets it. The real Kjolman grabs and holds his body, even if it means that he will die. Granfell uses this opportunity to cut his head clean off and notes that with this, he has received his pride. Later, Kjolman wakes up with his head still intact. He is quite confused, and everyone from the party asks if he's okay. He begins shaking as he saw himself how his body had its head cut off. Granfell notes that he already told them that they needn't worry about a thing, as he is here for them. A human's negative emotions can lead to the empowerment of demons, so they should all be prideful and hold no fear. A demon hunter's attacks only affect the targeted demon. These words seem to move Kjolman somewhat, and Lee notes that he didn't forget that logic, even if it's been so long. However, the imp didn't drop a single item, so it means he was dead broke. Later that day, Kjolman goes to his brother and shows him a post about a certain dungeon and about a party whose leader was possessed by an imp. The comments don't believe a word of the story and call it fake news. His brother asks if what he wants is for him to believe that story, and Kjolman confirms it. The brother notes that even if he's the guild leader, just taking a person's story for granted like this is a bit too much. Kjolman explains that the party leader from this story, the one who was possessed by a demon, was him. This causes Nam Taman, level 368, and the guildmaster of Gaon, to spill his drink all over the table from surprise. Taman is surprised that Kjolman wants to quit being a player and become Gaon's analyst, as he was against the idea sternly, so he's finding it hard to believe. Kjolman asks why he doesn't trust his own brother. Don't they share the same blood? Taman urges him to stop being so sarcastic about it, and he apologizes, noting that he was only kidding around. Taman asks if he's also not kidding about becoming an analyst, but Kjolman says no. He's very serious about that. He has realized what his weakness truly is, and what his real role should be. He's been struggling to keep up with him up until now. But now, he wants to take pride on himself and carve his own path. Taman notes that his boost in confidence has made him quite curious about what kind of person that guy is to change him so much. Other than having killed the imp through him, if the status abnormality didn't affect him in the slightest, it must mean that his mentality stat is unparalleled. He also fought with a dagger and magic, from what he said. There are thousands upon thousands of classes in Arcana, but he has never heard of a class that uses those two things. He also doesn't get why he went into that specific rupture, considering he could have done harder ruptures with those specs of his. Kjolman says that he knows how this story sounds, and that it's truly hard to believe, but he asks him to believe in him. Taman notes that he trusts him fully, since he was witness to all of this after all. Boss pattern analysis, guild management, and the scouting of new players. He got to where he is today thanks to his guidance, so of course he would trust him easily. He even brought a contract since he's older brother, and now, the most prided Gaon analyst. Kjolman becomes embarrassed from all the praise, but thanks his brother for being so kind. Taman laughs out loud and tells him to look at the contract to see if the terms are to his liking. Kjolman does so and starts sweating profusely when he finishes reading them. Back at the apartment, Lee notices that his level went up by quite a bit. He is quite happy with this, but Granfell notes that it's too little of an increase, and Lee says that gnolls don't give much XP, so killing a single imp leveled them up by a whopping 12. Granfell says that he doesn't concern himself with such trivial matters, but Lee sure does, and wonders how to spend the stat points efficiently. He also thinks that he needs to go to bed, since he feels tired. But Granfell has other plans, as he thinks this place is a mess, so he gets to cleaning. Later in the evening, Granfell is cooking, and takes his sweet time in making the perfect and healthiest dish he can. Lee is already starving, as he forgot that Granfell followed regular schedules and practiced self-restraint like this. However, he learned something quite crucial from all of this. The traits he gave Granfell are being applied to the real world. Other than the job and level, he would have just showered and instantly lied down to rest. But he's becoming much healthier because of him. But what are his talents? Of course, his talents are not similar to a single one, as he is talented in magic and can imitate most spells just by seeing them a single time. He is also very intelligent and quite fit as well. Granfell thinks that this is enough and rewards himself with some tea. However, he has to check if these traits also apply here, in the real world. Suddenly he gets a message from Cheolman, which is quite long. He ignores it for now, without reading it, as he has more important things to attend to. The first thing that he will be checking is to see if Granfell can really imitate most spells just by seeing them once. He pulls up a few videos and gets to writing. Cheolman and Taemin stare in shock at Granfell's text, a simple no. Cheolman wonders if he got an offer from another guild, and Taemin notes that can't be possible, as they offered him a house, car, all of the fees paid, and a deal with a split of 9.5. How can another guild could ever hope of surpassing that offer? Cheolman says that he can't be sure, but after the Mage Tower appeared in Seoul, foreign guilds from around the world have been setting up branch offices around here. Taemin asks who dares step foot in his own territory, and Cheolman explains that even if it's not a foreign guild that offered him something, all of the top guilds are right here in Seoul, so it might have been one of them. Taemin smashes the table and says that he can't let this go now, as no other guild can give an offer that can actually rival this one. This is a contract so special that he wouldn't dare show it to the higher-ups of Gaon. He gets up and starts dressing, noting that he can't move on from this, and asks Cheolman to know how he looks like, as he is going to bring him into their guild until some other guild nabs him from them. Cheolman thinks of how best to explain him, as he is quite the puzzling individual, and Taemin urges him to think faster, as they don't have that much time. Cheolman thinks about him, and notes that he looks exactly like a fantasy novel's aristocrat. A very fancy one at that. Granfell writes down all of the magical techniques he had seen on the phone, and Lee thinks that he can see it, the fundamentals of magic, that is. He is now certain he can use these things if he has enough mana, that is. As expected of the great Granfell now, he can forgive him for being extremely cringy, as he is the best genius around. Granfell finds his reaction quite rude, and Lee thinks that now, with the stuff he knows, he can distribute his stat points efficiently. He doesn't know how Granfell's talents will go, but he is open to any and all possibilities. He puts 2 points in stamina and agility each, and 7 into mana, since it is quite low. With 1 point left, he is reminded about Granfell's sad past, wondering why he even wrote such a dark past. The last point he puts into luck, for his and Granfell's sake, who will have to work hard for them from now on. He only raised luck form 1 to 2, but that means he basically doubled his luck. Who knows, maybe tomorrow, he will find some money on the street. In the morning, he looks onto the mirror with a shocked expression, as he has found much more than money on the street. A whole class quest, the prologue of Counterattack. After Arcana basically become reality, quests became much rarer, and the reason for it was quite simple. There are not many NPCs in the real world to be able to give quests. Even a normal quest is much rarer than before. But what he got was a class quest, which seems to be a normal quest related to his Demon Hunter class. But from what he remembers, this shouldn't be no ordinary quest. He finds an article about a paladin by the name of Guyver, who had also received a class quest. It is a quest given to only one person among those who share the same class. It is such a big deal that just receiving one is enough to make the top news articles, an amazing kind of quest, that people start mentioning that getting one would mean to get into the top ranks. Logically speaking, there is no way a level 67 like himself would actually get a class quest, so it must mean that he's really the only demon hunter left on this world. However, it does make sense. Akshan was the post of the demon hunters, and naturally sounds like a great place, but the reality was quite shocking. The demon hunter training instructor welcomed them warmly by making them climb a 1,000-meter cliff. This is when Lee was met with the reality of the class he chose. The quests were a repetition of rather pointless hard work, and the facilities were inadequate, to say the least. Even for meals, they had to climb a mountain, and all the NPCs did was scream and yell. Anyone with a sense of preservation for themselves would have quit, but Granfell found it quite nice, as demons dig into the human mind, and that training made him much stronger. Lee thinks that all of that is in the past, and best left there, so he should take a look at what kind of quest he was given. He opens the tab, and his face drops. The AAU, the Anti-Arcana United Korean Branch, is a facility formed in order to reduce the chaos and damages all over the world. They hired all of the employees who had previously worked on Arcana and its development. In response to Arcana updating, an update that was going to reflect in the real world, they collected information and related it to Arcana, while also analyzing it for the players. In other words, they are overworked businessmen. An employee damns Arcana for ever existing while stretching, and also asks another worker who had been there for longer if there will be a new rupture update this week, as it's already past 8. He says that they can only hope that doesn't happen, and the laid-back worker notes that Raymond is extremely creepy. He must be the one managing the homepage and always uploading content, isn't he? The experienced worker tells him to stop making so much chit-chat and keep clicking refresh. The laid-back worker notes that he was just curious as he uploads the content on the homepage. The same things happened in real life a little bit later. Suddenly, an update appears, and they both start sweating profusely. The whole office is in a frenzy, and one person even starts writing his notice of quitting, while another unplugs all of the phones, as the press will surely call them. This update is based around demons, with a new rupture appearing, containing the Count family's fortress, territory, and the territory outskirts. There are also new monsters, who are all quite high in level, the lowest being 220. There is also a new named monster, Count Oscura, who is level 430. The laid-back worker thinks that this is crazy, as the rank 1 player currently is only level 403. This is just a plainly unfair update, not meant to be cleared. He thinks that this is too hard, even if a bunch of rankers got together. The experienced worker says that this isn't the issue, as a whole association wouldn't be able to do anything here. The laid-back worker asks about the Mage Tower, as the NPCs there might be of some help. The experienced worker explains that the NPCs won't do anything, unless the tower itself is at risk, so they will certainly not help. Every which way they swing it, it's impossible. They are basically telling them to watch people die. It's so over, as this rupture will certainly have a breakout. The laid-back worker tells him to not jump to conclusions like this, as if they fail the rupture raid, those things will come and kill people in the real world. The experienced worker thinks that the updates up until now were very doable, but this destroys that balance completely, an unthinkable event. Unless some miracle appears, they are screwed. Granfell looks at the quest, which started with hunting a demon condition, which he completed. Now, he has a repeated quest, to train his weak body. Lee laments having to do physical work again. It's almost as if he has never left Akshan in the first place. His entire body is shaking. Is it really okay to train this hard? What if he just ups and dies? Granfell can barely make a sandwich, because his entire body is unstable. He thinks that making a sandwich with a new look like this isn't bad once in a while, and Lee asks him to stop spilling it everywhere. However, he does feel like he achieved something, as he would have given up right away if it wasn't for Granfell's pride in having to accomplish anything that he puts his mind to. Now that he completed that dumb quest, he can get some well-earned sleep, and is also quite excited to see what quest is next. Early in the morning at a park, Granfell is doing pull-ups, and Lee is extremely furious. He got another quest of the same nature as the last, to run 20 kilometers, do 1,000 push-ups, 500 pull-ups, and 300 burpee tests, which he did already. Lee wonders why they are going through this type of quest again and again, as it's already been a week since they started. Once he completes one, another just pops up tomorrow. Granfell sits on a bench, extremely exhausted at this point, and Lee thinks that he is able to do all of this because of Granfell's traits. But how much more quests he needs to do in order to get a reward? Suddenly, the system notes that he has completed a week of daily quests, and rewards him with 2 stamina and 2 dexterity. Lee finds these rewards amazing, as they are permanent too. Items that raise stats are extremely expensive. It takes millions of won just to raise 1 point, and after that, it's just whatever the seller wants to receive. However, he just raised 4 points of his stats without even leveling up. That is just straight up broken. If it's a repeat quest, it must mean that he gets this reward every time, which he's very happy with. Granfell says that he would be able to do it 10 times a day for a reward like this while shaking, and Lee tells him to calm down. Suddenly he hears some news from the radio of the grannies that were at the park with him. Most guilds have decided to plainly give up on the new rupture raid. At the news, a reporter tells everyone about the new update, and the new monster, Count Oscura. He is a half-demon, half-vampire hybrid, and his level is 430, which is the highest a monster ever was. It is also assumed that this rupture raid will be the most difficult one ever. Granfell watches all of this on his phone while brushing his teeth, and Lee wonders how anyone will be able to beat a level 430 monster. Everyone, people panic, as the boss monster seems impossible to beat, and most large guilds pulled out instantly when they heard about him. Lee watches all of this go down, and thinks that demons are what players have the most difficulty with currently, as they grow stronger the longer they battle, and players also have to deal with the abnormalities they throw at them. This is why people say that one needs to be 10 levels higher in order to defeat a demon. Therefore, Count Ascura, with his towering level, will have no opponents. If it weren't for this new class quest, that is. Lee damns Akshan and everything that it stands for, as the only vampire alive right now is Ascura, so it's basically telling him to fight it. He is scared, but that's a given, as he's supposed to defeat an impossible enemy. But these are only Lee's emotions, as his heartbeat is actually calmer than ever. This body is not his anymore. So how does Granfell feel about all of this? Of course he is ready, as these inferior species are threatening to interfere with his time, so he will punish them for this heavy sin they carry. Lee expected this, that this crazy bastard would want to kill them. Lee gathers information about the rupture, which seems to be in Russia, so his first destination needs to be the Mage's Tower, as there is a portal in there, which lets users teleport anywhere instantly. This is one of the main reasons why many large guilds all over the world have a branch in Korea. He smirks at his phone, and thinks that it's best he takes a taxi rather than the train, as he will have to change trains too much. Granfell says that he had to get going, as time is of the essence in this situation. Lee demands he not leave like that, and he stops, noting that he forgot something. Lee is relieved, but his relief is shattered into bits, as Granfell grabs a few packs of instant tea, as he can't miss out on tea time, the most important time of the day. News outlets all gather around the Mage Tower, and get ready to interview the Gaon Guild, who are planned to arrive shortly. A newbie reporter notes that there are lots and lots of reporters, and asks one of the camera crewmen if Gaon is really going to come. He says that it's likely, as the new rupture is in Russia, and the Mage Tower is close to them. Suddenly, the Gaon Guild arrives, with Taemin in the front. The crewman rushes in, and so do other reporters with countless questions about how they are going to raid the rupture, and if they are planning to share information with other guilds. The newbie reported rushes in, and asks Taemin how he's going to fight Count Ascura. Kjolman notes that they would like to take interviews later, but Taemin laughs, and notes that it's quite a shame, but they have no method of actually killing Count Ascura. They never really considered that kind of thing when entering ruptures anyways, and they chose to go earlier than other guilds to beat their competitors, naturally. They will also not be sharing any information, as even if they demand it, under the guise of world peace or some nonsense like that, they won't give it to them. If they really strived for world peace, shouldn't they challenge the ruptures themselves, instead of sitting back like cowards? The newbie reporter doesn't know what to really say about all of this, but suddenly, the Shining Guild arrives, with their leader Lox, who is level 399, in the front, and grabs everyone's attention. Their butler notes that they will have to go on foot because of the crowd, and one of the members thinks that Gaon's guild words were quite harsh. Lox notes that he's just anxious, as all the large guild are coming to Korea because of the Mage Tower, and their position is getting lower and lower. He's most likely betting everything on this expedition. Kjolman sees that he's concerned, and notes that there is no need to be anxious, as they will take things slowly. That is the best way to do things. Taemin asks if he tried to contact Lee again, but Kjolman notes that he didn't have time, as the update had taken place, which made them quite busy. Taemin says that if he's as strong as anticipated, maybe he will try to raid the rupture. Perhaps they will see him in the Mage Tower. While in a bus, Granfell watches another video about magic, and thinks that this marks the 100th video he watched regarding magic, so he understands fully now. There are 3 levels to magic activation: inspecting the mana, interfering it, and finally manifesting it. He uses a fire skill in the bus, and the driver tells him to not use skills in here, as it is quite dangerous. Lee urges Granfell to apologize, who does so quite pompously. He thinks that he just learned a skill from watching a video, so it's going to be quite helpful, as he didn't have many to begin with. He opens the skill tab, but the skill he just used isn't there. Is this perhaps a bug of sorts? Eventually, he arrives at the Mage Tower, which looks completely different from the outside. He approaches the portal and suddenly feels something vague, almost as if he could also manifest this type of teleportation magic. It might actually be easier to understand than the ignition magic earlier. A man carrying something suddenly bumps into him and sends him straight into the portal. Taemin demands he watch where he is going from now on, as they are making them look bad. Chilman thinks that the man who was pushed into the portal looked like Granfell, but his thought had interrupted by Taemin, who asks him for the briefing. Chilman starts explaining that the new rupture is in Russia, and it looks like this. The outer circle is the territory's outskirts, and there are countless entrances. The inner circle is the Count family's territory, and there are about 30 entrances. The last is the innermost circle, the fortress rupture, where the boss monster Count Ascura resides. This is just an assumption based on shapes and patterns, but if the rupture breaks, it's likely that the Count Ascura castle will be summoned in the real world. In Russia, countless news outlets film the new ruptures, and even a vlogger is there, who starts live streaming his experience. Suddenly Granfell arrives, and the vlogger tells him to find another rupture, as he was the first here. Granfell tells him to move at once, as he hasn't the patience for something like this. Lee just meant that he was cold, but of course it came out like something else. He arrives at the front of a rupture, the territory outskirts. He just hopes that from here out, it's more warm. Inside, a woman is slaying a few zombies, with her group telling her to wait, as she is moving too fast. This is Leonie Bellucci, level 348, and the Berserker Guild Master. Her trait? To say lots of words that need to be censored. Granfell arrives on the other side of the portal, and thinks that this must be the outskirts of the territory. Lee doesn't like it one bit, as it's even colder in here, but Granfell likes it, as this weather is making his blood boiling and keeping him warm. Such a great way to begin the hunt. Suddenly, a few growls can be heard from behind him, and when he looks, more than a few bloodied wolves appear, which are all level 230. Granfell thinks that have a pretty high level, and he's only level 67. However, with the natural enemy skill, he can surely come out of this victorious. Granfell says that these must be the Count's guard dogs. They really chose the wrong owner. He summons his dagger, and notes that he will make them unable to be ignorant, and then they will realize the fear of being hunted. In a different part of the outskirts, Leonie's group assesses the dead wolves, while she starts kicking one who is already dead, and saying some things that YouTube certainly wouldn't like. One of her guild members urges her to calm down just a bit, but another dismisses this, as this is just how she is. Finally, she calms down, and looks upon the wolf, who is surely dead now if he wasn't previously. The guild members talk about how they already killed dozens upon dozens of these things, but there's seemingly no end to them. That's when Leonie noticed that something is very strange with them. These wolves hold no fear. It's as if they don't even know what that is in the first place. The guild member asks what she's talking about, and another urges her to not try and seem sharp, as it's clearly not working. She says that isn't why she's saying this. It's that it feels really ominous, and for no reason. For example, have they ever seen even one whimper or look in pain while they killed them? The party can't say that they have, and this leaves them quite puzzled also. Suddenly, a desperate howl can be heard from a distance, and they notice that it's clearly not a normal howl. It's a cry for help, rather. They didn't sound like that when they were killing them, so what could make them do that? Leonie notes that if they won't look, they won't know, so they should follow. The party urges her to wait, and one of the members signals the others to rush, as their guild leader is on another crazed sprint. Granfell uses the bow, and thinks that he can feel the mana that is gathered at the arrowhead. It's not a good arrow, as its craftsmanship is quite poor, but he can inspect the mana on the arrowhead and interfere with it. And if he does that, he can manifest whatever he wants to. He covers the arrow in flames and shoots a wolf, instantly killing it. The others are now hesitant to even attack at this point, but they also can't run away, as they can't escape Granfell's agility. Later, Leonie arrives and is awestruck at what she is seeing. A lone man, among countless wolves' bodies, enjoying some tea, as it's most likely tea time. One of the guild members wonders if he has a fire arrow magic skill, and Leonie wonders who this bastard is. Who in their right mind dresses up in a suit for a rupture raid, and why is he even drinking tea in the midst of all the flames? A guild member suggests that he's most likely a streamer, and he probably started following a guild, but couldn't catch up, so he decided to rest here. Leonie thinks that is pretty stupid, and talks with him, noting that it's very dangerous around this area, so a civilian shouldn't be inside. He must get out, now. Granfell just side-eyes her and continues drinking his herbal tea. Leonie is extremely mad that he ignored her, while her guild members try very hard to contain their laughs. She tries to scold him for ignoring her so rudely, but that's when the guild members demand she watch out, as new enemies have arrived and are surrounding them quickly. The party gets ready to defend themselves, but are very scared at the sheer number of them, and wonder where they came from in the first place. These are bloodied bandits, and seem to be at the same level as the wolves, 230. Leonie demands everyone get into position, and they begin attacking the bandits. A guild member urges everyone to be cautious, as most of them are brandishing weapons. Leonie gets into a position to activate her skills, and slashes countless bandits in only a second. She tells her party that they have nothing to worry about, but she gets proven otherwise, as on a nearby hill, countless archers are ready to unleash a flurry of arrows on them, and their deadly red eyes glisten even through the darkness. A member notes that they are basically surrounded. So what do they do now? That's when Granfell finishes his tea, and Leonie is extremely surprised that he didn't leave. Is he actually insane? This is not the time for tea at all, so he should run already. Granfell looks at the thermos and notes that now, it's pretty doable. The bandits unleash their flurry of arrows, and Leonie can only look up, as there is basically nowhere to run to. Granfell starts inspecting the mana that is inside of the thermos bottle, and interferes with it. What is left to do is manifest, as in order to get the skill he wants, in the scale he wants, he needs tons of mana that he cannot really handle at this level. If his assumption about this is wrong, he will pass out instantly, by trying to manifest this skill. However, what if these magic spells that he's always using are not skills? A surge of mana rushes within him, as he has gained new meaning of mana and its uses. A large beam of blue mana comes from the ground, and Leonie prepares for the worst, but the worst doesn't happen, as giant wall of rocks have saved them from the countless arrows. She thinks that it must be alchemy, as she has never seen anything like this ever. To have a skill that can make great walls such as this one means that the person must be quite powerful. Granfell explains that it's not a skill, and what he is using is magic. Pure magic without restraints. The other party members are just as surprised, but still glad, that they were rescued. Still, they wonder if he is an alchemist. And what is he doing here, if he really is one, as alchemists are usually production workers? Leonie also wonders what he means by magic, and Granfell thinks that it's very possible to change the form of something, if he can interfere with the mana of the object. It is closer to alchemy, rather than magic, so they aren't exactly wrong, but not right either. Suddenly the wall starts rumbling, as the bandits have broken through, and are coming from the side. Granfell finds this to be unfortunate, as he will have to push tea time back once again. The guild prepares for battle once again, and Leonie does so as well, while telling Granfell to scurry to the back for now. He has other plans, however, and summons his bow and arrow. One of the members asks for a healer, as someone has been injured gravely. But this gives a bandit the opportunity to strike from behind, leaving him no room to dodge. Suddenly, an arrow blows the bandit away instantly, and the members wonders if there was ever such an archer like this in their guild. Leonie is surprised that he is an archer, and wonders what the wall was about if that is the case. Granfell engulfs the arrow in flames, surprising Leonie even more. Is this man a mage, perhaps? But no, he has archery, alchemy, and magic. Just who can he be? Eventually, the guild takes care of the bandits, and the ones who went to scout say that there aren't any more in the surrounding area. Leonie congratulates them for doing a good job, but she is clearly frustrated about something. That something, or someone, is Granfell, as he is in such a dangerous rupture and dresses like that, which she finds utterly crazy. Plus, he also won't answer anything she questions him about properly, and also doesn't look tired at all. But he is most likely holding it in. It's quite embarrassing to even think this, but if he wasn't there to help, they all would have died. So it makes one wonder if he is a rancor, or something similar to. He is also quite handsome, but that's besides the point. She should just go and thank him for the much-needed help. However, he did ignore her previously, so saying thanks won't work. Suddenly he looks at her while making his tea, making her face red from blushing. Leonie swiftly looks away and wonders why he's looking so intently at her, as she doesn't like him or anything. Granfell continues staring, making her head spin with ideas. Does he perhaps want to drink tea with her or something of the nature? Well, if he does share, she wouldn't refuse, probably. Suddenly, he calls her, and she asks what it is. He demands that she stop looking at him that way, as he doesn't have any tea for her. This crushes her spirit and confidence completely. Outside of the rupture, countless drones patrol the area, and a reporter from Today Arcana begins broadcasting. He says that this update brought upon lots of global attention, since it has the highest level boss they have ever seen. Another reporter asks if this rupture is named the Territory Outskirts, and he says that she is correct, as this is the first of 3 ruptures that came with this update. There are hundreds of ruptures leading to that exact place, but the other places will become available later. Shining, Gaon, and other guilds are already in the rupture as they speak. But which guild will be the first to clear the rupture? The first one will achieve that, will most definitely gain global fame. A man watches all of these news from a tent, and another man comes in and notes that he must want some coffee, since he is the director and all. He urges him to get inside fast, as he's letting snow in. The assistant asks why it's so dark in here, and the director says that he simply likes it this way. He also asks about how the rupture is looking, and if any new videos came in. The man explains that everyone is around the middle of the rupture, with the Shining Guild being the fastest right now. The director notes that if this is really the case, they should get a spot near Shining, and prepare to interview them first as soon as they come out. The assistant notes that it will take a lot of time to beat it, so they should just watch the drones. Suddenly, he spots something, and bolts outside, even through the camera's way. The reporter apologizes for their assistant director, as he just ran in front of the camera like a madman. The director starts clearing at them to follow the assistant right now, as a rupture has just turned blue, meaning that somebody cleared it. The reporter asks who it might be, but the director doesn't have that type of information right now. They just have to run like the wind, and be the first there. The assistant gets to the blue rupture, and is quite surprised at what he is seeing. He makes contact with the director, who is ecstatic, and asks what he captured and which guild it was, Gaon or perhaps Shining. The assistant explains that it's neither, and surprisingly, it's the Berserker Guild. The director finds this puzzling as they are the 32nd in terms of rank. The assistant confirms this, and notes that he's sending him a video as they speak. The director notes that Shining is still in the middle, and they went into a new and dangerous place, but they all look fine. Suddenly, the assistant spots a Korean person is amongst them. Even thought Berserker is a European guild, so him being there is quite strange. Other reporters start rushing in, and the assistant notes that he will try to get in front. The director is extremely confused at this point, and the assistant rushes to Granfell. He asks if they can do an interview, and what about his relationship with the Berserker Guild is, and if anything happened inside of the rupture. He bombards him with constant question, and that's when Granfell demands he move out of the way, as he is testing the utmost limits of his patience. The assistant is left shocked, and Granfell leaves, as this place is too cold. The Berserker Guild is bombarded with interviewers, who ask tons of questions. Leonie doesn't want to comment on any of their questions, but one of the guild members urges her to do otherwise, as this is their first big clear. She, however, still refuses, as they should interview that bastard instead. She is still very mad at what he told her, and that he pushed through and cleared the rupture first. She asks where he is, and a guild member notes that he left first, as he wanted to go home for a bit. Leonie is extremely mad, and the reporters can only watch her melt down. How can he leave like this when she was basically acknowledging that he beat the entire rupture solo? She continues her rant like a rabid chihuahua, and her guild try to calm her down, as he must have a good reason to leave like this. Suddenly, a second rupture gets cleared, and the interviewers flock to it. The second clearers were Gaon, who look very tired and bloody. The interviews flock to them, but Taemin notices that the Berserker Guild is also here. Were they really the first ones to clear it? That's when Leonie says something, which catches everyone's attention, including the interviewers. At the base camp of the Gaon Guild, Kyeolmin and Taemin watch the news while eating some well-deserved hot noodles. What Leonie said was that Gaon wasn't the only good guild in Korea. This makes Taemin quite mad, as she saw her giving him some side-eye while she said that. She got first clear, and this is all she says? They barely managed to clear it before them anyway, so why is she so smug? Cheolman wonders what she really meant when saying something like this. and Taemin notes that she must have been insulting them, as nobody is as great as their guild in Korea. He gets so mad that he hands the ramen to one of their assistants, which he happily takes. However, it was empty, as he already ate it all. Kyeolmin notes that she probably meant that she met a Korea player in the rupture, with Taemin thinking that perhaps it was the mythology guild. Kyeolmin notes that they are still in the rupture, and Taemin finds it great at first, but then laments it, as he doesn't know who it could have been. Kyeolmin says that he's not really sure, as it's hard to find a Korean who is better than them. However, there is only one person he can think of. Granfell takes a hot shower, and Lee dances around, as he is extremely happy to get out of that cold and enjoy some well-earned rest. Granfell finds his attitude quite embarrassing, and Lee says that after a hot and nice shower like this one, he will take a good and long nap. Granfell stops for a second, and Lee fears the worst. Unfortunately for him, the worst comes to pass, as Granfell has detected some dust, probably gathered while they weren't home, so he needs to get some cleaning done. Lee is extremely distraught, as he wanted to rest badly. After cleaning everything and eating a meal out of scraps he found around, he enjoys some tea, while Lee watches him. However, he doesn't even feel sleepy anymore, and looks at all the gear he got inside of the rupture. He thinks that there isn't anything really that useful in here, and also checks his stats. His level went up by 19, so it's now 86. It's not that much considering that was a high difficulty rupture, and additionally, it was very dangerous. Magic uses less mana than skills usually do, and thanks to that, he was able to use it more, which is much better than the skills he had. Granfell notes that, even with that, the regeneration of mana was very slow. That is a given, however, as they do not have any accessories or equipment that help with it, and the Demon Hunter class has few benefits, and there is nothing related to skills. It would have been quite bad if they hadn't met that group, and could have thanked them, if only he knew who they were. Granfell notes that it is because he was lacking, surprising Lee quite a lot. Granfell did not really know how to be humble, as if someone were to underestimate him, he would prove himself. On the other hand, if someone were to overestimate him, he would meet their expectations and make their assumptions a reality. Why is he suddenly remembering this trait that he wrote? Granfell explains that the next rupture will be in the Count family's territory, so there is no time to relax, as he can't depend solely on magic and has to get better at combat. He found a suitable subject for today's test anyway. Lee thinks that he's right. The players that were fighting alongside them had combat skills, with the short-haired girl being the most notable of the bunch. If he can copy those movements, his combat abilities would improve. Granfell pulls up a menu, and Lee urges him to stop, as he knows what he is doing, but begs him not to. Granfell activates another body training quest, despite the Lee's words, as basics are the most important thing to take care of. However, he needs to do the dishes first, as cleanliness is also needed. Lee wonders where sleep will fit into all of this. Later that night, he starts running while listening to the radio, and Lee starts crying, as he only wants some sleep. Suddenly, the radio station notes that they have some urgent news to share with everyone. Currently, most of the territory outskirts ruptures have been cleared, and soon enough, the Count's territory will be available for raiding. However, according to some news they just have received, the destruction progress rate of the Count's territory suddenly jumped to a large 60%, despite it not being open just yet. At this rate, the Count's territory might break, so professionals are expressing worry about this matter. The Gaon Guild watches this, and Taemin notes that this is an impossible situation. It's only been a day, but the destruction progress is already at 60? How in the world is that even possible? Kyeolmin explains that the time limit to clear gets shorter the stronger the monsters inside of it are. Taemin notes that it got faster for no reason. Does it mean that the monsters inside got stronger? Kyeolmin notes that he will have to look further into all of this, as it is quite strange. At the Today Arcana camp, the director is in a frenzy, as there must be a reason the monsters suddenly got stronger. The assistant notes that there is no way to know, as even the advanced guild's analysts have no idea. The director says that something must be done about it, otherwise it's over for all of them if a rupture were to break down like this. Once the monsters start spewing out, all the civilians will be butchered and players will suffer the same fate. Granfell reads more about this and finds out that this has never happened before, so it makes sense that nobody would know. Since this information is only available on auction, which was destroyed. He needs to hurry, as vampires are creatures that share authority through their blood, and Count Ascura did the same with the monsters inside of the outskirts. When they died, the authority naturally goes back to the owner, and the Count probably just redistributed his authority with the monsters inside of the Count's territory. This is why the monsters became stronger and the destruction rate progressed. But if that's the case, if they raid the Count's territory, there is a risk that the Count's fortress will break down instantly afterwards. Count Ascura is an aristocrat that does not take back what he granted to others, so he will bestow judgment upon him, who is dirtying the honor of the aristocracy. Lee thinks that is cool and all. But what about sleep? Granfell notes that he can sleep only when he sees that thing dead. The Count's territory starts breaking and cracking, and only 5 hours are left until it breaks down. More people gather around the Count's territory rapture, and a streamer by the name of Park Huigang welcomes his viewers back to his channel, which exudes determination. He is currently in the snowy mountains of Russia, as the Count's territory has reached a huge 70% destruction progress. So, there are less than 5 hours until the rupture breaks out. The time is exactly 3:48 a.m., and there are tons of guilds here, despite how early it is. He pulls out a notebook and notes that he has some interesting points to make, but the chat is not that impressed, and they mostly diss him. The grind never stops, however, so he explains that this time, the Count's territory only has 30 entrances, way less than the previous rapture, which had 200. And since there are so few entrances, various guilds decided to go into one rupture at once. The XP and loot is distributed based on the contribution rate, however, so guilds need to balance each other in order for both to prosper. The chat continues to diss him like usual, since they probably have nothing better to do, but that's when they spot Cheolman behind him, so Huigang turns around to see him, and indeed, it is. Cheolman greets his team, and Taemin asks how the rupture entrance situation is. Cheolman explains that he looked into it thoroughly, and found out that competition is basically inevitable, since there are so little entrances. Taemin notes that they are fine with anything, as long as they are not going against Shining, that is. Cheolman tells him no to worry about them, as they went far north, because they want to go against the unified Under Heaven Guild. Taemin is surprised, as that is the guild which holds the second rank, and Huigang's chat begin talking about how the first and second guild are duking it out. Cheolman says that Berserker is with Second Son and Bohemian, which makes Taemin think that they are better safe than sorry that way, but they will not gain much look or experience. Huigang's chat slowly disappears in front of him, as the people are going to watch other streams, so he tries pleading with them, but nobody is really listening at this point. Suddenly, someone arrives near them, and Taemin's face contorts into a wicked smile, and he shakes while asking what they are doing here. This is the fourth-ranking guild, Inazuma. They guild master, Hisagi Kazuma, who is level 376, and holds 6th place in the player rankings, says that this must be a coincidence, as the lowly Gaon guild is standing right in front of the rupture he wants to enter. Huigang is surprised that Inazuma is here, and his chat is even more intrigued right now. Taemin notes that they were very insistent on not placing a branch of their guild in Korea, so their plane must have just landed, right? Kazuma laughs it off, and explains that it's much better and economical to take the place to Russian, than set up a whole branch in Korea. Taemin asks if he's really challenging them right now, and Kazuma notes that isn't worth anything of value, so the world won't lose anything if they eliminate them. The guilds both start to exert their power, and get ready to attack at a moment's notice. Huigang is the first to catch this in action, and thinks that if he can record all of it, he just might make a fortune. That's when countless other streamers and reporters sweep besides him, and rush to see Gaon and Inazuma in action. They rush in, and ask tons of questions, with no real rhyme or reason, while Huigang just watches from behind, as that is the only thing he can do right now. Cheolman explains that he knows how he feels about Inazuma, but the destruction progress of the Rapture is their biggest issue now, so if two guilds compete, everybody will lose, and there isn't enough time for that. Suddenly, the streamers around start saying that Inazuma is better than Gaon, as it's falling behind in 5th place. There is also the rivalry between the guild masters, which is quite sad, as Kazuma is 6th place, while Taemin is a lowly 11th. All of these comments sting Cheolman like bees, and they are both extremely riled up now, and ready to go. Cheolman explains that they were here first, so naturally, it will not look good if they give up this space. He gestures Taemin to rip them apart quite strangely, who happily obliges. That is how Gaon and Inazuma went into the Easter rupture at the same time. The news get wind of this and report about their rivalry and how their respective rankings and nationalities are bringing a lot of attention to the situation. At the northernmost rupture are the first and second ranking guilds, shining and unified under heaven. In the southern rupture, the 30th ranked guild, Berserker, the 7th ranked guild, Second Sun, and the 3rd rank, Bohemia, all went in together. The destruction progress has already reached a dangerous 80%, so this is naturally causing fear and anxiety to be felt throughout the world. While inside of the Count's territory, Granfell is having some tea, but the rupture he went through is unknown. He thinks that the most useful thing he got from the last rupture is a fact. That running out of mana is extremely dangerous, so he had to figure out a way to use mana more efficiently during battle. The result is this. Magic designed from the alchemy skill, in which he shapes things into the stuff he wants. At first, to test things out, he got some rocks and changed them into a teacup and table. However, the more complex decor and detail he wanted, the more mana he had to spend, so it is not as efficient to use in battle. There is also one more thing he realized while pondering this issue. Suddenly, a few soldiers of the Count arrive, which are all level 300. Granfell puts his hand forwards and notes that if this is all the authority the Count gave them, it is quite pathetic, to say the least. A few rock formations rise above the soldiers, and Granfell demands they turn back into dust. He uses the Restore to Original State skill and crushes all of them. With this skill, almost no mana is used, and Granfell notes that this best classified as reversal magic, so he will name it just that. Lee laments the cringy name, but lets it go for now. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of the territory, a few soldiers are waiting for victims, but they seem to be the victims, as Taemin jumps on one and instantly kills it. The others see this and jump on him, but this makes him smile, and he uses an extremely wide swing to hit all of them at once. Afterwards, his guild also arrives, but Taemin thinks that something is amiss here, as he has only killed 10 monsters, which is very few for how deep they are. One of the guild members reports back and notes that Inazuma is around the same state as them. They haven't killed much. They entered the same rupture, sure, but they went completely different ways, so how does any of this make sense? Suddenly, Inazuma pops up, and Kazuma notes that it's quite peaceful around here, which he finds to be boring. Taemin asks why he thinks they are friends all of a sudden, and they get into each other's faces. Kazuma notes that he doesn't really get why he hates him so much. It makes him want to kill him. Taemin tries to say something, but Chilman contacts him over earpiece and notes that he has done the dungeon analysis and needs to get out of the square, as that place will be swarmed soon. They don't get to, however, as the earth rumbles, and Taemin's expression changes. The Count's knights arrive, which are all level 350. Taemin demands everyone get ready to fight, and Kazuma also draws his weapon, as this is not the time to bicker around like they usually do. Taemin thinks that cavalry has much more destructive power than average terrain units, so even if all of their tankers combined go in front, they would suffer mortal injuries. So what is he supposed to do in a situation like this? Kazuma says that he doesn't like this idea at all, but he asks him to take his back while focuses on the front. Slowly but surely, the enemies surround them, and there is nothing they can do. Chilman tells Taemin that this situation is too dangerous, as even the unified Under Heaven Guild suffered extreme casualties from a single cavalry ambush. They should not fight, and lure them somewhere where they can't come in all at once. Taemin thinks that he would like to retreat, but that seems impossible right now. Suddenly the earth starts cracking beneath them, and large pillars eliminate most of the cavalry and block the rest. They are all extremely surprised by this, and wonder who could have saved them in this manner. That's when Granfell shows himself, and Cheolman is extremely shocked to see him. He tells Taemin that this is the man they wanted to recruit, and who saved their lives, Granfell. Huigang is still streaming, and is on Gaon's tail inside of the rupture, despite how dangerous that is. While he tracks them down, his 12 viewers continue to diss him, with many saying that a lot of streamers are already on Gaon, so he should do something more interesting. He tells them that he will try to go after the Inazuma Guild and see what he can dig up, but that's when he hears a large explosion, and his chat was very surprised by it. Someone donates 4,001 for him to check it out, so he gets going as fast as he can. The guild masters of both guilds are extremely surprised, as there are stone pillars all over the battlefield. Kazuma looks at Granfell and wonders just what type of monster this is, for him to summon all of that without chanting a single spell. Kazuma thinks that he must have extreme amounts of mana, and also finds his attire quite weird, considering all of this place is basically a battlefield. Just who is this guy? Suddenly, one of his subordinates tells everyone that knights have started to appear between the pillars. However, Taemin sees this as an opportunity. The stone pillars are slowing down the horses significantly, so this is the perfect opportunity to strike. He explains that he will have to thank him later, as he has a few horses to butcher. He also activates his berserk skill, which increases his attack damage by a ton and dulls the damage he receives. He jumps high into the air and thinks that with these pillars advantaging him, this battle is won. He cuts one of the horsemen in two, and the impact of the attack permeates throughout, also damaging the others. Kazuma sees this as an opportunity to shine, so he tells his guild to charge forwards. They do so, and Huigang is glad that he caught all of this, and wonders who this amazing mage is, while his view count rises to 132. They also observe Granfell using reversal magic, as he crushes two horsemen. Huigang and the chat can only stare in awe, as they find it hard to believe what just happened, but it is real. Granfell summons a dagger, and notices that its durability is pretty high, but he wouldn't want to bring it down. Huigang's chat sees this as him playing with the mob's life. Granfell thinks that if he interferes with the dagger's mana to change it, and reverse it back to normal right after, the durability shouldn't be affected. This should work, as when he changed the rock into a cup, it had a cup-like durability, and when he changed it back, the rock turned back to normal. If this ability to restore to the original state really bring it back to the original state, like advertised, it's entirely possible. He transforms the dagger into a silver awl and strikes the mob, leveling up in the process. His presumptions seem to have been correct, as the dagger doesn't lose a single durability if he reverts it right after. Lee is glad about this, as now, they won't have to pay for the repair fees, so more money in their pocket. The Gaon Guild congratulates themselves for a job well done, but Taemin is stuck looking at Granfell, who is enjoying some well-deserved tea. Cholman explains that this is the person they wanted, and Taemin notes that he heard him earlier. Now that he saw him in action, he wants him even more, and doesn't want to let other guilds sink their teeth into him, especially since Inazuma also saw what he is capable of. They will offer him a 10-0 deal, while also throwing something as a bonus. After some thinking, Huigang finds the courage to come next to Granfell and asks if he is willing to do an interview. Huigang's viewership skyrocketed to 68,000, and his chat starts simping for Granfell. That's when members from the Inazuma Guild start swarming him and ask if he would like to join their guild, as he is quite the amazing individual. Taemin pushes around them and offers Granfell a handshake while introducing himself. He also texted him recently about joining their guild, so maybe he knows him already. Granfell looks him dead in the eyes and notes that there is not a single shred of formality to be found around here. So, he will not be taking any questions, as he has more important matters to attend to. The chat explodes with comments, as they find it very cool or funny. News about Granfell go across the internet, and the Shining Guild seem to be very interested in this. They leader, Lox, asks his two subordinates what they think. Camilla notes that she doesn't know anything about magic, as she is an archer, and Dimitri, the 8th rank player, screams that they don't know. He also tells him off, as he is quite popular, so he doesn't know how desperate he is. He barely managed to get this date, but he is in this meeting with him, and missing all of the fun. For what? Just a bastard on a screen? Camilla takes a closer look at him, and notes that he does look cool, so if he is this worried about him, why don't they just scout him? Dimitri notes that it's obvious why, because this bastard of a leader is jealous. Because even though they cleared the Count's family territory first, everyone is talking about that man instead of him. Camilla notes that they are probably just hyping him up like they usually do, and Dimitri agrees, while noting that he can't be this late to a date, so he needs to go already. With that, both him and Camilla leave, letting Lox look at the screen in peace. That's when another member comes behind him and notes that what this man did is like magic, but not really. This is Jessie Heinesse, a level 397, and the 4th ranking player. Lox notes that he never heard her describing something as cool, and she begins analyzing further. She begins smiling, and says that this person is quite interesting, and should be studied further. At the Berserker Guild camp, Leonie is extremely angry that they missed recruiting Grandfell, as the others didn't let her, so now she is taking her anger out on them. At the Inazuma Guild camp, Kazuma gets a call from someone, who notes that they must bring that silver-haired man to their side, no matter what it takes. In the latest news, the reporter explains that the Count family territory has been cleared successfully. Shining and Unified under Heaven both fought valiantly for the first place, but eventually, Shining was the victor and took the first place. The only ruptures left now will be the Count's family fortress, with its destruction rate being at 72% currently. Because of this high risk of a rupture happening, there is a lot of tension within the different base camps. If the fortress rupture really were to fall, they can basically wipe Russia off the map, so the only thing they can do is at least wish them luck and pray for them. Grandfell, after taking a shower, watches the news about him, which describe him as a mysterious player. Many news outlets discuss in length about him, and reaction channels start blowing things out of proportion, like usual. One of the news outlets notes that building so many pillars from just a flick seems impossible to do with current abilities, so they will ask their rupture specialist. He explains that the situation was dire, and if he was a second late to the party, many people would have died there. The player who did all of this knew that the knights were betting on their mobility, so he changed the terrain, and that, combined with his quick thinking, is what saved Gaon and Inazuma. And also, from then on, he just watched, which seems to be his way of being nice to the other guilds, basically saying that it's their time to shine. Grandfell thinks that he was just out of mana at the time, but Lee thinks that it's great they aren't calling him an asshole, like what would usually happen. He also checks the loot they got, as among it is a rare item, the first one he got. This is the necklace imbued with the blood curse, which must be purified in order to bring out its real effect. These items are called devil items, as once the curse is broken, a random effect is unsealed, so basically a gacha item. Most players would throw this away because of the effort they need to put into breaking the curse. But there is another proper way to use a cursed item, with the exorcism ritual skill, which invites a demon into one's head. Lee thinks that this is one of the 2 exclusive demon hunter skills, and it's needed in order to use the item as an offering. The basic affect of the skill is that one can attack a demon without harming the one it possessed, like he did with Cholman. But things change when there is an offering into play, as he can invite a demon into his very consciousness. It's similar to the status abnormality given to humans by demons, although there is the possibility that one can be possessed by the demon if they have a low mental stat. However, if he can fight the demon inside of his head, where it's more advantageous for him, things will be easier. Suddenly he gets a call from Cholman, and Lee thinks that it might be because of how Grandfell basically embarrassed their guildmaster on live television. They don't accept the call, and instead write a message, to maybe clear things out. Grandfell, however, didn't get the memo, so he writes a single word: troublesome. He left out that he doesn't want to be sued, making Cholman and Taemin think that he is ignoring them again. Taemin sighs, as he only wanted to apologize for being informal and offer him a deal. They watch the playback of the news, and see that indeed, things were informal, as everyone tried to talk with him at once. They also see that his eyes were tired, so he was struggling to hold his anger in. This was just because he was tired due to the amount of mana he used. Taemin says that there is nothing they can do now, as the count is more important at the moment. The destruction rate of the rupture rises to 83%. So they need to cut their rest short and go in. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking, and some urgent news start blaring out of every speaker. The Count family fortress Ruptura has broken down, as it has reached 100% destruction rate in an instant. The base camps are now in disarray, and there are around 200 injured. The United Nations and US are advising Russia to close their borders now, so the players need to evacuate as fast as possible. The Count's fortress pops up into the real world, and Grandfell also arrives, not being that surprised that it collapsed. The others watch him as he goes in alone, and he stops at a statue. He notes that it is quite distasteful, and with that, he is the first man to officially enter the fortress. Granfell wonders how that old and decrepit vampire dares call this place a fortress. But well, it does fit him, since he is what he is. Lee thinks that Granfell is saying all of this solely because the mansion of his family was at least 10 times bigger than this place, which speaks volumes. Suddenly, the eyes of the gargoyle statue start glowing a deep red, which spooks Lee a bit. The statue snaps out of its eternal rest and starts cracking around as it gets ready to attack Granfell. The other players are as shocked as Lee and wonder if they should help Granfell, as he is famous for attacking with a dagger, and if he only has that, he can't hope to win against that stone beast. Or perhaps, since the rupture has fully come out into the real world, should they just run away? The gargoyle attempts to strike Granfell with all of might, but with only one flick of his fingers, he shatters it into tiny pieces within a split second. The Shining Guild hears the commotion and wonder what that noise is, as it seemed to come from the fortress. Camilla says that this sounded exactly like the noise from the video they watched, about that white-haired guy, and Jesse, probably out of sheer curiosity, starts flying towards that direction. Lox tells her to stop, as they were about to go in anyways, so they should do so together. However, she doesn't listen to a word of his, as she is extremely curious at this point. The other players look at Granfell in awe, as he defeated that mighty-looking gargoyle in a single attack. Lee notes that it was made out of plain stone, and he's broken too many of those in the past for this to be of any difficulty. Granfell explains that particular statue was of poor quality, poor texture, material, and creation. They put such a piece of garbage in their garden, like it was something they should be proud of, pathetic creatures. The players start screaming, and with newfound confidence, they charge in, all eager to see what the mansion has to offer. Lee is surprised by their sudden change of heart, and Granfell spots another quest popping up in front of him. This one is a class quest, and is a sub-quest for the prologue of the counterattack class quest. What it entails is to make the vampires feel fear about being hunted. Lee is puzzled by this quest, and wonders what that even means. But Granfell gets going instantly, as this is not the time to hesitate about things. Lee urges him to just sit and think about this for a bit. They can't just go to kill it now. And how is he going to make him feel any type of fear? The Count is an ancient vampire, who is level 430, and they are only level 100. Granfell says only that he is a demon hunter, which enrages Lee, as that has nothing to do with this. Eventually, they arrive at a banquet hall, and Granfell notices something strange, as the portraits of the Count start to emanate a strange feeling. Sure enough, in another place inside of the mansion, the Gaon Guild is barely standing on its feet, as they are all affected. Kjolman asks Taemin is he is okay, who notes that he's fine. He's just a little suffocated. Ever since they entered this hallway, which is full of paintings of the Count, he feels like he is being constantly watched, just like the status abnormalities the demons usually cast. Kjolman knows exactly what this means, that the portraits are connected to the Count directly, so they should burn them as quickly as possible. After they do that, they all feel much better, and Kjolman explains that this is why all of the players that went in first were retreating so fast, because everything in that damned castle is a trap. All of the portraits, statues, and even the interior items, everything is causing abnormalities. It makes perfect sense now, why the Shining Guild didn't enter through the main gate. Taemin thinks that they just have more experience, so it's a given, however, even if his class is Barbarian, which is more equipped to sustain status abnormalities, and he feels so overwhelmed already. How bad will all of this get once they go further in? Granfell walks around the halls and notes that all of these portraits are utter garbage. How can they eat in here with all of this garbage strewn around the place? They surely have strong stomachs. Lee says that he is too harsh, even if this guy is a vampire. But Granfell continues nonetheless. The statues around here are the same type of garbage. He now feels bad for the stone that had to be sculpted into something so ugly. And in the first place, why are there so many portraits around here? Now he fully understands why people think that narcissism is a disorder. The whole layout of the castle is also to be laughed at, as there are a bunch of unnecessary forks in the hallways, and also hallways that lead to empty walls. If they really thought themselves of this layout before building the fortress, they must not have a single brain cell in that empty head of theirs. That's when he notices that, throughout his ridicule of this place, he arrived at a stairway, which leads to a pretty large door. This makes Granfell smile, as judging from the placing and the stench that comes from behind that door, this must be the main area where the Count is situated. Lee is a bit hesitant to charge in, as that place just seems off in every way. But before they can fully go up the stairway, Jessie pops up in front of Granfell, happy that she finally found him. She explains that she saw his really cool and unique magic. Granfell just looks at her, and she starts yapping about how curious she was about him and the skills she uses, while Lee thinks that if she's floating like this without a care in the world, she must have endless amounts of mana. She asks if they can talk about his magic, as she is very curious, but Granfell explains that she should watch her manners. He puts his hand on her shoulder, pulling her down, and notes that if she wants to be taught something, the bare minimum is to have some manners when asking. Jessie just looks at him, but her usually cherry expression is shattered into fear, as the Count himself has come out of his room. This activates Granfell's natural enemy skill, and the Count explains that he wondered who woke him up from his restful sleep. But it was just two measly humans. How foolish of them. Jessie thinks that the Count's power is truly overwhelming, and asks Granfell if he is all right. However, he doesn't hear her, as he is too focused on that stinking vampire. Count, how funny, as he should only be called Ascura. All he is a rather vulgar and vicious vampire. He takes out the necklace he got earlier and uses it as an offering. Today, he will be taught an important lesson for pretending to be of real aristocratic lineage. He activates the skill exorcism ritual, and Lee now gets it. If they do manage to activate the ritual, they could bring Ascura into his consciousness and fight there. So this is what Granfell meant by saying that he is a vampire hunter, as his head is filled with thoughts about eradicating demons. Will this be okay, however, as Ascura is still level 430, so if things go wrong, they might get possessed. Ascura starts laughing at his necklace, and notes that all of his is quite a pity, in his eyes. He likes his arrogance, but he is still nothing more than a lowly humanoid. Jessie explains that the Count is now absorbing the power he shared with his subordinates. But Lee already knows, and this is very bad. He is already 300 levels above them, but if he were to absorb all of the power he shared with his subordinates, that level gap will become much larger. That's when the necklace breaks, and they are both transported in another place, Granfell's mind. Ascura wonders where this place really is, but that's when he spots Granfell, and begins laughing maniacally. This is quite the unique trick, at least for a human, but he can simply destroy him and get out of his foolish mind. He tries to hit Granfell with a few flaming attacks, and after the smoke clears, he is nowhere to be seen, making Ascura think that he completely annihilated him. Granfell speaks from another side, and asks if that is really what he thinks of him. Ascura is a bit annoyed that this guy is still alive, and asks how he managed that. Granfell urges him to watch closely, as the one who died will be presented to him shortly. Ascura watches him with worry in his eyes, but that worry turns into shock, as Granfell is now standing on a dead version of him. Ascura cannot believe what he is seeing, and in the real world, he starts slashing around with his power. There is no way he died. This is all a mental trick, a measly ruse, trying to make him think of the worst. Jessie wonders what is happening, as that white-haired mage is still, but the Count is going on a rampage. Granfell mocks him, noting that he seems quite afraid, which makes Ascura scream at him to shut up, while blowing the ceiling up completely. Lee just looks at the night sky as they almost died. Jessie thinks that he predicted the attack was going to miss. That is why he is so relaxed, right? Truly, an amazing individual. Lee thinks that they didn't move because there was literally no time to react, and Granfell uses the skill exorcism ritual once again. This skill allows the user to attack only the demon, should that particular demon be in possession of a human. However, there is an entirely different effect should the user use an offering. That effect is to forcibly invite the demon into the consciousness of the demon hunter. Whoever wins in this situation depends solely on one's mental fortitude. Ascura tries to attack him with some bats, as he is extremely scared. But this is only natural, as there is no way Granfell would be affected by something like a lowly demon. Jessie just watches in awe, as this is truly an unbelievable sight. Just what did he do to the Count? He is screaming like a maniac, and trying to attack in completely random places, while running away in utter fear. Ascura tries to deny all of these visions, but eventually, he is afflicted with fear, and Jessie finds that what he is going through right now resembles what demons afflict humans with. With this, Granfell completes the quest to scare him to death, so all that is left is to take care of him. Jesse starts to ask countless questions, like how he did it, and what magic type it is. But he ignores her and strikes Ascura as to end him once and for all. But he stops, as that attack basically did no damage. He tells Jesse to kill him, making her ask why, as he was the one who did everything, so why should she be the one to do it? He can certainly do it on his own, so why? Granfell looks in the other direction from the shame, and Lee starts cringing hard, pleading with Jesse to catch on already, as this is too much for his poor heart. She seems to have gotten something, noting that she was the one who asked for his teachings. So now, he is basically trying to tell her that if she becomes stronger, she can learn that new magic on her own, isn't that right? She creates a few runes next to Ascura, and moments later, a large beam destroys him, which surprises Lee quite a bit. With that, the distribution rate is calculated, and he also receives tons of levels. Jesse crouches down and looks at what remains of the count, a bunch of ashes. Lee thinks that, even if that guy was weakened, she still basically one-shot a level 430 demon in a single attack. Is this really the power of a high-ranking player? Jesse, out of simple curiosity, starts picking up some of the ash and eating it, which shocks Lee, but not Granfell, who is looking at something else. The system congratulates him on completing the quest and gives him another class quest. This class quest is called Brewing, and tells him that with the prologue out of the way, now he is the only beacon of light in this world, full of demons and evil. The Shining Guild arrives at the scene and asks what she did. Did she defeat the Count, as all of their status abnormalities have seemingly disappeared? She tries to say something, but they also spot Granfell, and she starts looking at him. She explains that she is not very familiar with manners, but she will try her utmost to hold them. She introduces herself to Granfell as Jesse Hynesi, and also asks Granfell for his name, if it's not too rude to ask. The guild watches, and waits eagerly for a response. In a show of complete symbiosis, Granfell and Lee have the same thoughts. This girl does have bad manners, but she is willing to change and learn, which can't be said for a lot of people. So, she will reward her with his name, their name. He is Lee Hoyol. In an apartment complex, a woman is preparing some food while her daughter watches the news, which still talks about Lee and his exploits. The daughter recognizes him and pulls on her mother's skirt as her Uncle Lee is on TV. She wonders what she is talking about, but when she looks at the TV, she sees when Lee introduced himself to the whole world, albeit reluctantly. This woman is one of his sisters. Later, while cleaning, she gets a call from her and thinks that it was about time one of them called him. Even since the defeat of Ascura, all that appeared on any type of media was his face, so it was only a matter of time before his family found out about this. He gets a few calls from two sisters, and the third one starts calling him also. All of these three sisters are older than him, and they have been close ever since they were young. Well, except him, who was the only boy, and constantly bullied. He doesn't really want to pick up the phone, as they will surely start screaming at him like they usually did. That's when 3 bangs can be heard from the door, and the sisters demand he open it, as they know he is in there. Lee is extremely scared, and the sisters wait eagerly. The one on the left is the first sister, named Yuni. The second one is named Jiun, and the third one is Yerim. Granfell opens the door, and notes that they are being too loud, and the neighbors will consider them nuisances. So first they should calm down, and come inside. They are all surprised by his change, but Yerim is shocked. At another news outlet, Lee is the talk of the town, as he seemingly appeared out of nowhere, and is the one who defeated Ascura accompanied by Jesse Hynesi, someone from the Shining Guild. Despite all of the interviewers trying to get more out of him, he simply said that he is Lee Hoyol, and left. Cheolman watches all of this while chilling on the couch, and Taemin hands him some hot cocoa, as they deserve it after what happened. Cheolman wonders if Lee will even consider joining their guild, as he has become the talk of the town, and a lot of guilds are surely trying to scout him as they speak. Taemin explains that even this is true, he is still most likely to come to them, as they have his number, and a reason to contact him. The loot they got from the fight with the horsemen in the square was all thanks to him, so it would be quite impolite to not share some with him. Cheolman asks how much he is planning on giving him, but Taemin tells him that is not important. What is that even if they somehow lose him and another guild gets to him first, they need to make sure they leave an everlasting impression. In order to do that, they will give him everything, if they have to. So they should call him, right now. They do just that, but but he is busy, as his niece is doing his hair, while his sisters chat. Yoonhee is the third in the family ranking, and tells him that his new hair color is pretty cool. Ji-yoon, who is ranked 4th in the family ranking, starts laughing at him for that, as he looks like one of those K-pop stars, while Yerim, who is 5th in the family ranking, just looks at him, as she finds his tone extremely strange. The niece is ranked 6th, while Lee, who asks them what type of tea they want, is ranked last, 7th. Ji-yoon is laughing until tears come out of her eyes, while Yoonhee notes that he has become much gentler in nature. Yerim says that if he became a player, it means that he was synchronized with his character, right? Lee confirms it, but gets interrupted by his niece, who wants something from him. The sisters look at this sight and thinks of the old days, specifically 10 years ago. Lee knows what's coming, and sure enough, the sisters begin talking about the era when he thought himself as Granfell, and also dyed his hair white. Lee starts cringing extremely hard and wants them to stop, but they still talk about how he greeted their parents like an aristocrat, which was extremely funny. Yerim looks at him and asks if he is in any type of danger. They were all very surprised when they heard about him, as players get injured all of the time, and he also doesn't pick up his phone at all, so they were extremely worried about him. This makes Lee smile, as even with their constant mocking, in their heart of hearts, they still love him. They also say that he can quit whenever he wants, as they are on his side, always. Lee tries to apologize for worrying them like this, and tell them that he is actually fine, but Granfell tells them that he, the demon hunter Granfell Claudi Arpaeus Romeo, is plenty suited for the job, so they needn't worry. Lee wonders if he should just end it all, as that was so cringe, he doesn't even know what to say. Later, having finished their tea, they get ready to leave, and Granfell wishes them farewell, and is looking forward to meeting them again. Yerim remembers that she had to tell him something before leaving, that is to save some money. Lee wonders what saving she is talking about, as he doesn't have any money. But that's when he remembers that he must get the Rupture Clear reward. This is the player's main source of funding, directly from the developers of Arcana. The amount differs a lot, depending on the contribution and difficulty of the rupture. He eagerly checks his account, but blocks the last number with his fingers, and wonders how much it's going to be. 10 or perhaps 20 million won. At the Shining Guild, Camilla bothers Jesse constantly, wanting to know more about Lee, as he seems interesting. Jesse tells her every time that she doesn't know much about him, but Camilla doesn't give up. This makes Jesse emanate a dangerous aura, and tell her that she is focusing on something right now. So, can she be left alone? Camilla gives up, and wonders why she is watching videos on Korea etiquette of all things. Jesse continues watching the video, and a notification telling her that the reward for clearing the rupture was sent. Lee also finds out about the amount of money he was given, and almost faints from shock. 110 billion won was credited to him, which is a lot of cash, but Granfell finds it annoying that he is so happy over pocket money. The loot that Lee got automatically after killing Ascura was his vampire orb, which is a unique rank cursed item, same as the necklace. Lee from the past would have instantly dissed this item, probably saying that it's trash and undoing the seal is impossible. But well, it can be used as an offering for an exorcism ritual, so even if it's trash, it's befitting for a trash class like his to use it. However, he is different right now, as when he used the necklace imbued with the blood's curse in order to face Count Ascura. At first, he thought that the item would simply vanish from his inventory, but it is still there, and with the curse undone too. His presumption is that the ritual purified the item somehow, but now he doesn't know what to do, as he has the orb, the necklace, and 100 billion won. Due to all of this sitting on his head, especially the money, he can't get a wink of sleep, as he wonders constantly what to do. Get items, put the money into his savings account, maybe even tell his family about it. Granfell tells him to think less, as he is trying to sleep, but Lee doesn't stop overthinking, wondering if it would be better to get some equipment since he is going into ruptures, but it would also be an utter waste to get a lot of gear for this level. When he killed Ascura, his level grew by 34, so now he is level 134. He was level 55 literally just a few days ago, so considering the fast rate at which he has been growing, it's not wise to spend like a maniac on things that would be useless in a few weeks. He would like a few mana recovery items, but they are exceedingly rare, and when they go on sale, they are too expensive. Granfell urges him to get off the phone and rest, as he is hurting his retinas from all of that screen time. Lee tells him to shut up, as he is a millionaire, so he doesn't have to worry about such petty things, right? The next day, at the AAU Korean department, all of the employees are called for a meeting, where someone presents what happened to the knights that Lee defeated, and based on this and some presumptions, it is highly possible that this is alchemy. One of the employees wonders if it is so, while another slams the table and notes that this is utter nonsense. Alchemy couldn't never create such giant columns of rock like that. Nobody could ever hope to have the mana for something like that. Eventually, the meeting falls into just bickering, while the experienced employee watches them as they gnash at each other's throats. He thinks that this is very exhausting, as everyone he goes, literally everybody is talking about this new guy, Lee Hoyeol or whatever. The newbie asks if he knows anything about that guy, but the experienced employee notes that they are in the same situation. If he doesn't know, he has no clue. The newbie explains that in just a few days, his life turned into a nightmare, as everyone, including his friends and family, are asking him to tell them about Lee. Nobody even goes by that name in the Arcana database, so is that his real name, or just an alias to throw reporters off? The experienced employee says that it's Thursday, so when the new update pops up, he's sure that all of this fangirling over one guy will eventually die down. That's when they get information about the new update, and they both stare in awe, as a new region has been added to the world, called the Yusra Archipelago. This place is known to those who played the game in the past, as it was a mystical region, nicknamed the Island of Treasure. Of course, what flew around were only rumors, as nobody was ever able to find it, but it was said that everything living in that place was treasure, so valuable in fact, that it was incomparable with what they have. Such an amazing place will surely bring more life and hope to the world. On the news, there is of course coverage on the new update regarding the Treasure Island, but there is also news about how the Academic Society of Mages will be recontinuing. This Society of Mages, which is a near constant discussion and debate between the most experienced mages, has always helped mages in improving their skills greatly. Lee and Granfell watch this coverage on the phone, and something more interesting seems to be happening. Jesse, from the Shining Guild, was also one of the invited players, and is entering the tower right this very moment. Granfell continues to do his pull-ups while watching, and Lee laments that he scolded her about manners, since she is literally the fourth-ranking player in the world. Granfell doesn't really much care about Lee's annoyances right now, and notes that he is more interested in the Academic Society of Mages. There's also a saying that goes with them: the Tower of the Mages has magic, but not skills. Lee recognizes this quote, as it was written in the description of the Mage's Tower, back when Arcana was still a video game. Granfell explains that he doesn't know what this society is even about, but he will probably get something out of it if he goes there. Yes, he will do that, right after cleaning the dishes, of course. Lee doesn't even know what to say at this point, so he just lets it go. At the Mage's Tower, countless people gather in the front as they patiently wait for the doors to open. A girl who is affiliated with the Mage's Tower, Cleo, is very happy that the Academic Society is happening once again, as she wonders what kind of things she will learn, and if Marcello, the head mage, will really be presenting his research today. A random person walks backwards while talking with his friends and doesn't see Cleo, so a crash is about to happen. Cleo, however, remains untouched, and the guy's friends being laughing at him as he ran into a wall. Cleo calls him an idiot, and that's when Jesse comes around and tells her to not call these people idiots, as this illusionary wall is a spell cast by the Tower Master for the meeting, so it's hard for common people to see through it. Cleo apologizes profusely, noting that indeed, idiots as she says, but the random group look at the wall in awe as they saw Jesse go through it. Cleo explains that she is the guide for this meeting and is supposed to take anyone who is invited to the Crystal Hall. She is actually the last person here, so she is also going to go in, as nobody else should be coming. Jesse wonders if it is so, and notes that she would like to wait here, just a little while. She has a strange feeling that a certain someone will be coming very soon. Eventually, Granfell makes his way to the Mage's Tower, and both of them think that each time they come to this place, it is way too crowded. Today especially, there is way too many people, maybe because they are trying to get to Yusra, or maybe even join the Mages Society. That's when someone recognizes him as Lee, and in a short second, he is bombarded with admirers, who ask him for countless things. Both Lee and Granfell are peeved by this and think of how to get away, but that's when a random person grabs his bag and notes that he is a really big fan. If he gives him just one picture with him, he will stop annoying him. Granfell thinks that this bastard is pulling on something too important, as that bag has his brown rice green tea, which cost 501 per tea bag. This is the only thing he splurged on with his hard-earned cash. Thus, Granfell tells him to screw off, which shocks Lee, as that may have been too harsh, even if this guy was being quite annoying. But maybe, if he disappoints these people, he will get less attention, so maybe it's for the best. Unfortunately for him, instead of being disappointed, the annoying man starts fangirling even harder, as he got insulted by Lee in real life. More and more people start requesting this, which makes Lee disappointed in the human race. They both think of ways to get out of this debacle, and that's when they see the wall, which seems different. Granfell starts running towards it with full force, even with other people warning him about it. Sure enough, he almost falls over Cleo after stopping, which makes him note that this is some praiseworthy illusion they got here. Cleo escorts Granfell up the stairs, and she looks at him sometimes, wondering who he is. All of the people that were invited are definitely already inside, so even if she flips through the invite list countless times, this man is just not here. Granfell observes her rummaging through the list and asks if there is a problem. Cleo immediately thinks of how she was pinned when they first met, and notes that there is none, as he wanted to attend the meeting. Isn't that right? Granfell confirms that he does, but Cleo finds it extremely strange that this man could see through the illusion magic, as it was put in place by the Tower Master himself. So just who is he? She continues to blush and stare heavily, which makes Lee wonder if she has a fever or is sick. Granfell asks if he can't attend without an invitation, and Cleo explains that people who can actually see through the illusion magic are allowed to attend the meeting, even if they did not get an invitation prior. However, he is the first to do such a thing, so she is amazed, and actually really curious about what kind of man he is. In an academic standpoint, of course. Granfell, again, notes that it's very extraordinary illusion magic, and continues walking, while Lee analyzes the steps they are walking on, thinking that, with enough mana, he could recreate them. Eventually, they arrive at the Crystal Hall, the place of knowledge and inquiry. When Arcana became a reality, the NPCs that were in the game also appeared in real life. The one who is said to have more influence than all of them combined is the youngest head mage, Marcello, who is nicknamed the future successor of the Mage's Tower. He is the fastest, wisest mage there is, and nobody even gets close to his wisdom. The hat on Jessie's head keeps talking and talking about how amazing Marcello is, but she doesn't care in the slightest, which makes the hat angry, as this is some top priority wizard lore. Jessie explains that this whole meeting is making her sleepy, and it's also very boring. Magic, in and of itself, is a skill to her, so inspection and interference, things that are being talked about in this place, are irrelevant to her. She would have just skipped all of this if it wasn't for her dumb class quest, so at least she has to put up with it. Marcello notices her and asks if she is bored. He explains that the tower was summoned to this world for explorers and a myriad of other reasons. However, it wasn't directly summoned and was more part of an interference, what they call a new update, which continues to happen even to this day. He is quite sure that they are not used to their form of magic. It's just like how they have difficulty in understanding science. But in order to figure out what is going on and regain peace in their world, they must work together, no matter what. This actually segues to something he was going to talk about: science. He has figured out a possibility in science to further develop their magic. He creates a small ball of flame and notes that this is fusion, which is basically ignition created by joining magic and science together. Even if this is an entirely new development, they must approach it carefully. They do not know what kind of things will happen when combining two entirely different things. Jessie is now quite interested in the lecture, as it has caught her attention. But that's when Marcello notes that because of this discovery, he needs their help. Everyone at the lecture thinks that this is a quest of some sorts, and Marcello says that if anyone has any questions, they should feel free to ask. Granfell is the first to raise his hand, and explains that there are quite a few unnecessities in his inspection he showed earlier, and would like his opinion on the matter. Everyone is surprised that he would actually question the head mage, while Jessie is glad that he is here, as she knew that he would come. The council on the other side starts sweating, and most sigh, as Marcello isn't the calm sort, so things are about to get out of hand real quick. Marcello stares at him and asks why he thinks that way. Granfell begins explaining that it's quite simple. He just feels the estrangement. Science and magic are entirely different concepts, each with their own rules, so there are unnecessities because estrangement occurs in the process of their combination. He experiences something similar while combining skills and magic. He creates the same thing that Marcello created, which shocks him to his core, as it took him months to just activate that magic. But he just did it in an instant. And how can this man experience estrangement, considering that he is an explorer? Everyone in the hall experiences the same shock that Marcello felt, and that's when they notice that this man is Lee Hoyol. Granfell explains that using centrifugal force actually improves the effectiveness, and even if it is a bit lacking at the moment, it is not a bad result. Lee notes that the default ignition for this used up tons of mana, which he didn't want to waste, so he is using centrifugal force, which made things much more easier. Granfell thinks that it was a good choice to come here, and brandishes his very happy face, which makes people think that he's sneering, meaning that this must be child's play to him. At first, Marcello seems defeated by this level of development, but with newfound confidence, he asks Lee to join him in his research, as it would greatly improve and hasten it. This comes in the form of a quest, which Granfell accepts instantly, as he is very happy. Yet his face makes it seem like he has defeated Marcello, and is now reveling in the glory. In the Yusra archipelago, Leonie and her guild arrive, but she isn't too happy, as it is way too crowded for her liking. One of the members kisses her on the cheek, as she finds her annoyance very cute, while another member notices that, even though he anticipated for this place to be crowded, with reporters and such, there are also a lot of Arcanians in here, which are the NPCs. Among them, there are the Lionheart Knights, the Shadow Mercenary troops, and even the Explorer Alliance. Another member notes that this place is known as a treasure island, so of course, even the NPCs would be interested in it. That's when Leonie's phone rings, and it's one of her members, who attended the meeting. She explains that Lee was also there, and told the head magic that his magic was flawed. This makes Leonie laughs reel from the laughter, noting that the guy is a real psycho. The mage continues explaining that Marcello actually admitted to that, and even gave him a quest. Somewhere in the mage's tower, Marcello asks Granfell to write anything he needs for the research, as he will do his utmost to obtain them. Both Granfell and Lee are happy about this, as they can use this to their advantage. Eventually, Marcello is summoned to the top floor of the mage's tower, and the 5 stars of the tower berate him for inviting an explorer to work with them, as this violates their rules. But why would a mage even do something like this? Marcello explains that Lee is someone who perfectly understands magic, and he also overcame the gap between magic and science, something which he struggled with for months. His talents can't be wasted, as they can improve the world greatly, which is needed right now. The 5 stars tell him that mages should act on their own, and take responsibility in their own hands. They will respect his judgment for now, but he should remember that eventually, he will need to take responsibility for it. With that, he is excused, and Marcello laments having to work under these boomer bastards, as they refuse help from outside sources out of pride, which will hurt them in the long run. Cleo comes from behind him, and notes that she is on her way to pick up the items that Lee requested. Marcello says that if it's so, she should give that to him, as he was headed there anyways, as he had something to check. Cleo is quite confused, but accepts nonetheless. Eventually, Marcello presents Granfell with the items he and Lee requested, items that improve mana regeneration, and the various magic texts he wanted. He asks if he likes them, but Granfell laments even seeing them, as they are all too high level for him. He tells Marcello that these are not fit for somebody like him, quite literally in fact, which surprises Marcello, but he somewhat expected this. He apologizes for underestimating him, as he was curious why he requested mana regeneration items, but he probably already knew about this item. He hands him a hexagram brooch, which seems to be part of a 6-piece set. It is a level 100 item, which regenerates mana by 10% when magic is used. Lee thinks that this is exactly the type of item he wanted, as it improves his abilities greatly. Marcello notes that he realized he is an amazing mage when he found the unnecessities in his magic, but to think he also knew about this item, truly amazing. Lee wonders what's so great about this low-level and rather simple item, while Granfell stares at Marcello. He explains that, unfortunately, they cannot carry out the proper research, as he needs to fix his magic. The quest's updates, telling him to wait for Marcello to call. Granfell notes that he will wait for him to overcome himself, and Marcello thanks him once again, while thinking that, if it's with him, he might be able to change how the mage's tower works. On the new archipelago, Huigang sits around while streaming, which seems to be watched by 19,000 people. He explains that he is waiting for Lee to get to Yusra using the portal, and shows that there are countless people entering, so he believes that Lee will also be coming soon enough. The stream is tired of waiting, but Huigang tells them to be patient. A player overhears him talking about Lee and gets up close and personal to the stream. They recognize him as Kinver, who seems very angry that Lee is getting so much attention. This man is a part of the Supernova Guild, a group which is infamous for doing whatever they have to in order to complete their objectives, and Kinver is rumored to be the most evil of them all, as he is tied to many missing people cases. He tells Huigang to tell Lee that he shouldn't go overboard with his clown act. With that, he leaves, noting that he will keep a close eye on his stream to make sure he completes his objective. This whole thing makes the chat wonder if Lee could actually clear Yusra on his own, and they come to the conclusion that, perhaps, Lee is not showing because he knows he will be targeted by people like Kinver, so he is into hiding. Huigang is offended by this, and starts banning anyone who taints Lee's good name. Huigang explains that Lee is probably uninterested about the treasurers, as he doesn't do any commercials or shows, which goes to show what kind of man he is. The chat agrees with him, and people around just stare. While sitting in the Mage's Tower library, Granfell asks Lee if they have any reason to go. Lee notes that they really don't, while thinking that, even if it's a treasure island, he is only level 134, and that place is a level 350 rupture. There are also no demons, so he would have to fight with everything that he can in order to just survive. That's when they get a class quest, which has the condition to inspect the 7 deadly sins of Yusra. Those are pride, envy, wrath, gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed. Lee thinks about the situation quite a bit, wondering if it's really okay to go. But Granfell notes that there was no reason to go until earlier, however now, there is no reason to hesitate. With that, he packs a bunch of tea bags and walks away, while Lee tells him to at least change clothes, as it will be very hot in there. Eventually, in Yusra, Granfell arrives at the scene, and Huigang is extremely happy to see him finally get here. Lee doesn't like this place, as it is very hot, but he doesn't have much time to complain, as they both feel a great sense of evil that is surrounding the whole island, even the ground below them. Thus, Granfell's natural enemy skill activates, which prompts him to think that this influence is strong, so surely the demons around here must be on a completely different level. This can be seen as bad, as the island in its may actually be the evil, considering how much he feels. However, they both see this as an opportunity, as the natural enemy skill will be activated at all times due to this, which means that this will be quite easy. Huigang follows him around, and happily notes that there Lee has entered the forest of this archipelago, while his chat continues to wonder a myriad of things about him. Huigang notices how carefully he's moving, and thinks that it's because there may be some hidden things on this island that he can detect and wants to get first. But in actuality, they are both searching for an easier mob, because of their very low level. Huigang also tells his chat that he will never disturb Lee in any way, shape, or form, so if they don't like that, they can leave. They also shouldn't worry about him being caught, as in real life, he's basically invisible, as nobody looks at him. Suddenly, Granfell notices something, and in that moment, a group barges in Huigang's way, as they are trying to fight an emerald tiger, which is a level 420 mob. While one of the group members backs away slowly and berates the others for not wanting to split up, he bumps into Granfell, who he recognizes as the Lee, and asks what he's doing here. Granfell isn't that moved by the question, but Lee feels it into his very core, as he too is wondering why he is here. He was originally planning to just find a scorpion to warm up, but the first monster that popped up, unfortunately, is an emerald tiger, the highest level monster around this damn place. It's 10 levels lower than the count, but even still, he can't hope to outrun it. Not with his stats anyways. Granfell notes that the situation isn't great, as the sunlight that is falling on the tiger is blinding him. But, if he stops the movements of this beast, he can stop it from pulling any more tricks. He continues to create pillars of stone from the ground, which incapacitate the tiger, while the group, with Huaigang behind them, watch in awe. Granfell prepares to use ignition, as he hasn't tried it yet, and creates a large ball of fire on his palm. He throws it at the tiger, which creates a fiery explosion that almost reaches Huaigang too. The beast is defeated, as it couldn't do anything against the might of this power. Huaigang's chat blows up, and Granfell receives a level, while Lee thinks that the ignition he perfected with Marcello is a crazy ability, and additionally, that brooch, that recovers 10% of mana, is very nice to have. The group is shocked that he one-shot an entire Emerald Tiger by himself, and most are left speechless. In another part of the island, Shrek, the third raking player, and the guild master of the Second Sun Guild, is getting extremely annoyed, as they have been walking around this island for hours, yet they are still on the very outskirts of it. One of the guild members suggests that they regroup with the other teams now, as he has just received news that Shining has already reached the very core of the island with their entire team to boot, and they also haven't been able to deal with powerful monsters, since they are all split up like this. Shrek finds it difficult to admit, but he knows, and thinks that maybe, splitting up is where it all went wrong. His original goal was to get a lot of accomplishments, and loots from as many routes as possible with their numbers, because the Berserker Guild, which is ranked lower, got first clear on the previous expedition. He clearly underestimated the Yusra archipelago, and he says that he finds it hard to admit this, but he was way too greedy for their level, so they should call everyone back here now. Suddenly the team from the west, the one that Lee helped, calls, which Shrek thinks as perfect timing, as he was going to call them anyway, as they will regroup. The west team leader explains that they will come to them, as they have to give up this route, since Lee Hoyeol himself has already passed through it. Before Shrek can ask further, one of their mages gets a report from their other mage that was at the mage's tower. Supposedly, Lee received a quest from Marcello, the head mage, and he is now also the first player to ever get a personal research lab in that place. Shrek thinks that he thought it would be impossible for an NPC and player to build such a deep bond and relationship, even if he heard things previously about it. He notes that their analysis team will not be dedicated to only this guy, as they need to find out more, as he might be more dangerous than he is leading on. Lee smiles like a maniac at the pure emerald crystal he is holding, a supposed top-tier ingredient. He jumps around from how happy he is, which Granfell finds utterly pathetic, so he chooses to try and ignore him. Lee thinks that this ingredient is very rare, so there are few that can truly handle it, but if he makes a request to the mage's tower, as part of his research, he will be getting a free evaluation. Granfell's expression suddenly changes, as the atmosphere around the island changes, and the quest to investigate the 7 deadly sins on this archipelago pops up again. Before Lee can even wonder why it's popping up once again, the ground begins to shake, and another system message appears. The Yusra archipelago is being taken over by greed, and the destruction progress increases. Lee isn't the only one to receive this, as everyone that is on the island does. Granfell looks at the message, and notes that, if it's greed, there are plenty of greedy humans around here who could have awoken him, Lee included. All of this is because of one of this archipelago's 7 deadly sins, greed. With it, the message. The demon of greed must have awakened, and any demon hunter from Action would know that if the progress rate reaches 100%, every single deadly sin from this island will be awakened. Granfell receives another class quest, Brewing, as his prologue quest has ended, and he gets 2 new objectives. To stop the resurrection of the greed sin, and make sure that the treasure of this island is not corrupted by it. He is glad that it's like this, as he wouldn't have had the power to defeat that thing. But that isn't the biggest issue now. People around him start going manic about the treasure, and they all rush to get some, since the Shining Guild already cleared an island and got the treasure. Granfell thinks that this is a normal reaction to what's happening, as right now, all of the players on this archipelago are thinking the exact same thing as them. In order to stop the treasure from being corrupted by greed, they all need to let go of their desire for riches. But right now, considering their manic state, it would be an impossible venture. They start bickering with each other about who gets the treasure first, with all of them slowly becoming greedier and greedier, and Lee wonders what to do now, as one of his quests is about stopping this from happening. Granfell sighs and says that there is only one way out of this. He has to take it upon himself and get all of the treasure on this island, something which puzzles Lee. On the second island of the Yusra archipelago, the Shining Guild also received the message about greed, and Camilla explains that since there are 10 islands here in total, they must be a part of the countdown, as there are 10 squares, and one of them filled up as soon as they got the treasure. Lex notes that it's precisely as she says, but did they hear anything from Jesse's report? Dimitri says that if he's talking about the one where she constantly talks about Lee, and how he got to the top floor of the Mage's Tower, they read it already. And Camilla notes that Jessie is quite cute when she talks about Lee, as her eyes start to sparkle whenever she does. They totally have a thing. Dimitri asks her to be more serious about the situation, and Camilla mocks him by saying that he wouldn't know anything about that, since he got rejected by her after renting the whole hotel lounger, like a dumbass. Locke smiles and asks them, could they win against him if they were to fight? Dimitri tells him that he doesn't want to interact violently with that guy, and Camilla notes that they have plenty on their plate already, and plus, Jesse will literally kill him if he touches a hair on that guy. Lex says that it's true, as he just said this out of envy anyways, as there's no real reason to antagonize him. That's when another square fills up in the progression bar, and Dimitri explains that it was the Unified Under Heaven Guild who got the treasure this time. With that, Lex notes that they should get moving, as they wouldn't want for their treasure to be taken away. On another island, Lee desperately tries to stop Granfell from taking all of the treasure, as that would just progress the bar faster. That's when they meet with the Lionheart Knights, and Lee thinks that he didn't expect to come across them around this place. Granfell immediately recognizes one of them as the Lionheart captain, Harcom Kingsguard. One of the soldiers screams at him for addressing him like that, but Harcom stops him and asks for his name. Granfell introduces himself as Lee, and notes that he didn't think he would meet the Lionheart Knights in a place like this. Harcom explains that he feels a different kind of energy from him compared to the other explorers, and that's when he notices it's because of that brooch. Before they can speak further, something tries to smash Granfell from above, but he dodges just in time, and Harcom notices that the thing that crashed was the protector of this island, the great turtle of golden canines. He tells his men to prepare for battle, as this turtle is known for firing meteors, so they will split apart to not get hit. Sure enough, the turtle starts to shower them with powerful meteors, which also blocks their sight, as smoke gathers all around from the flaming rocks. Suddenly, one of the soldiers, Enoch, is put in a dangerous situation, as the turtle is almost stepping on him. Harcom desperately tries to reach his comrade, but the turtle steps down with all of its might, which pushes back the other soldiers. Enoch isn't dead, however, as Granfell has stepped in to help him by forming a giant wall, something which shocks the soldiers, as they did not hear any chanting from him. Before Harcom can ask how he did it, Granfell interrupts him, as this isn't the time to be chatting. The turtle prepares to shower the area with meteors again, and the knights get into formation, while Lee thinks that because of that wall, he almost consumed his entire mana pool, as he had to strengthen it. He didn't pass out only because of this brooch, which he is very thankful for, but still, he needs to save up his mana, so he needs to use these knights to their fullest potential. Markham grabs his attention and expresses his genuine thanks for his timely rescue. Additionally, if he helps them in battle, he swears on his Lionheart that they will never forget this favor. Lee thinks that this is the perfect opportunity to get some bonuses, and Granfell notes that monsters are naturally meant to be killed, so if they need help, he will be more than happy to accept. Huaigang, who watched all of this from a hiding spot, heard what Harcom said and starts fangirling for Lee once again. The chat also explodes with comments, while Huaigang apologizes for not being able to get closer to the action. Harcom tells his knights to charge, with all the honor they can muster, and they do just that, as Granfell just stands around, looking at the beast. Enoch looks at him and wonders if the captain did the right thing. To swear on his heart like that is the strongest form of swearing that they serve only for the royal family, so to do it with a mere explorer is strange. The men all try to hold the beast back as they try to bring it to its knees. Lee looks at them and is amazed. So these are the Lionheart Knights, a truly amazing display of weakness. That is, as the turtle is only slightly annoyed by their attacks, and not much else. Lee thinks that they aren't that weak, but they are not the right damage type for that gigantic turtle, as every single one of them is a melee class, so they can't attack all at once, as they don't have enough space. He checks the destruction progress, and it's halfway done already, as the people are taking the treasures much faster than he originally anticipated. He needs to finish this, so he needs to find a way to let all of the knights attack all at once. The turtle rumbles the ground beneath its feet, and magma starts coming out of it. The knights try to dodge, but there is no space to step on for them. This gives Granfell a grand idea, as he remembers the steps from the mage's tower. He tells Harkam and everyone else to get ready and charge, as he will open a path for them. He creates a stairway for them out of rocks, and the knights watch in awe as he does it. Huaigang is now in a state of shock after seeing this, with his chat being filled with comments. Harkam recognizes these types of steps, as they are the same ones as the ones from the mage's tower. The other knights also recognize it as so. Just who is this man, to be able to do all of this? Lee is now drained of basically all of his mana, and he looks more like a skeleton than anything else. The knights charge in, and Harkam screams at them to not waste this opportunity and deal with this beast as swift as possible. They all go to attack its head, and when they strike it once, the beast immediately falls, and the contributions start being sent out. Most are sent to the other knights, but he also gets some loot, and some level to boot, even though he didn't damage the beast at all. Harkam comes next to him, and notes that the brooch he has was a gift from an ancient emperor, who bestowed it upon the mage's tower graciously. He has saved their lives on this day, so they are extremely thankful. They all bow down in unison, and Harkam says that they, the Lionheart Knights, will continue to fight alongside the owner of this brooch, Lee Hoyol. With this, he receives the highest contribution rate for killing the Great Turtle, and the treasure of this specific island. Lee looks at it and wonders what to do. As if he takes it, greed will awaken, but if he doesn't, someone will end up taking it anyways. So this is a lose-lose situation. The destruction progress advances once again by 1 point, and Lee is quite scared. But Granfell just picks it up, which shocks Lee to his very core. He starts screaming, saying that they are screwed, and that he is a dumbass who doesn't think before he acts. However, Lee doesn't know that to the great Granfell Claudi Arpaeus Romeo, wealth had no real meaning. As somebody who was born as the direct successor of a renowned family, he had already tasted what wealth was. The emotion that is called greed simply did not exist in Granfell's heart. He notes that to prevent the island from being consumed by greed, he must do something quite simple, just take it, without any greed in his heart. Lee is surprised that something like that is possible, since he is a greedy little bastard. Above them, Kinver watches him eagerly and tells him to keep collecting those treasures, just like that. Behind him, the West group of the Second Sun group is decimated, with only one player being left alive. He calls Kinver an irredeemable monster, a coward, who only attacks weak players, and soon, Shrake will have his head. Before he can do anything further, Kinver cuts his head clean off, and his karma stat increases. He eagerly waits for Lee to get more items. That way, it will be very convenient for him to just take them, like taking candy from a child. From this group, he has looted some emerald essence, and 32 other looted items with it. As Granfell unlocks the island's treasure, everyone watches in awe, including Huaigang, who is now fangirling to the max, and his chat explodes with comments. The treasure glows in Granfell's hand, and he notes that, in order to prevent the island from being taken over completely by greed, they just need to take the treasure without any greed in their heart. Huaigang starts crying while he asks his viewers if that was recorded well. Their Lee just took the island treasure, and the destruction progress has not up, and they should watch how refined he still is. He really has no greed, and is fully selfless. The real Lee cringes, however, as the item they have received is only an epic and has no real stats to speak of. This must be a joke. He got excited for nothing like a dumbass, so much so that his greed just disappeared. If all of the treasures are so worthless, he doesn't even want them. Suddenly, Granfell gets a status window, showing him that the great Lionheart Knights have joined his party. Lee wonders what this is all about, and Harkam reaffirms what they said previously. They will be at his side from now on no matter what. They, the Lionheart Knights, will continue to fight alongside the brooch owner. That is what both Granfell and Lee remember. But Lee didn't think they would actually join him, but leave him alone during his stay on this archipelago. Harkam notes that he has saved their lives, and even showed that he can acquire the treasures without a speck of greed in his heart. They are not sure what his true goal is in this place, But at least here on this archipelago, they will be his sword and shield whenever he commands. Lee is very shocked, as even if this is only for the Yusra archipelago, he now has the best knights in the entire continent by his side. And the level difference is just insane now that he looks at it. Not for him, for the mobs, who are now extremely easy to target with these loyal helpers. Granfell grabs Harkham's shoulder while grinning quite devilishly, and notes that they should move on to the next island. Above all of them, hidden in the purple mist and dark green leaves, Kinver watches Granfell diligently before getting interrupted by his earpiece, as somebody wants to talk with him. That person notes that he's worried about the destruction rate not progressing the same after Lee took the treasure. Is he sure that he is the one that took it, and not the NPC dogs he has with him? Additionally, if he does have Markham and the stupidly loyal Lionheart Knights with him, can they really do anything to Lee at this point? Kinver asks the person if they are scared, and the person explains that they are not. They just want to be careful about it, as those guys are on a much different level than those bastards from Second Son. Kinver explains that he still sounds like a scared idiot, so he should stay out of this if he really is that scared. He has already prepared a little surprise for them, as the moment they decide to get on a shop to progress to the next island, all he needs to do is flick one single finger, and the Hydra poison, which is extremely deadly, will spread on every inch of the ship. Whether it's that bastard Lee or the popular Harkam, nobody will be able to stop it. They will all die slowly. Additionally, they can check for all of the treasure after Lee is dead. But suddenly, Lee looks at him, and he feels like he's been beheaded gruesomely. He clenches his neck and is now extremely fearful. It was impossible for Lee to notice him from this distance, and this amount of bloodlust is no mere joke. What Granfell and Lee see, however, is just a cute squirrel, most likely Kinver's disguise. Markham notes that, judging by where he is looking, he also noticed that tiny little rat over by that tree. What does he want to do with him? Kinver clenches his neck even tighter, as his mental health becomes extremely broken, and he is hit with the fear status abnormality. Granfell still sees a cute squirrel on that tree, and notes that he's not sure. Suddenly, the destruction progress advances, and Lee thinks that, excluding the crown they got, there is only one left remaining, so they better hurry. Granfell tells Harkham that there is no reason to focus so much on a tree rat, and thinks that they need to stop Greed's awakening, no matter what. He tells Harkham that they should hurry, who does as he wishes. The person who contacted Kinver previously tries to contact him again, but Kinver can't hope to respond, as he is still hiding in fear. And also he has literally pissed his pants. Is he alive only because Lee took pity on him? Or because he is just a rat that he cannot be too worried about? He falls down and thinks that, whatever the reason was, he thanks him from the bottom of his heart for saving him. He removes his mask and announces that he's done, and out of this deal for good. The person over the radio asks what the hell just happened, and Kinver warns them, if they don't want to die gruesomely, they should turn back now, and never, ever look back. With that, he closes the call, and the person over the phone wonders what the hell just happened. One of his men asks what's wrong, calling him Park Hyunjun. Hyunjun explains that Kinver hung up on him like a scared rat. Fuck. They invested too much money in this. They even borrowed money from a loan shark because that bastard Kinver promised that they needed the Hydra poison in order to succeed their mission. The man tries to calm him down, but Hyunjun is having none of it, as he is in manic state. He is telling him to calm down? Did he get the loan on his name or something? The other party members get in front of him and tell him to stop, as it isn't like him to get so worked up for things like this. Hyunjun asks, if he is so worked up, how are they so calm, huh? Oh, now he gets it. They are on the same side as Kinver. How much did that bastard pay them, huh? The members desperately try to calm him down, but Hyunjun is out of it completely and screams, just how much money are they taking from that bastard? Granfell notices something wrong in the distance, and Markham asks what it is, which he replies with nothing. He was just looking around. There is something dangerous around here, though, because his natural enemy skill has activated, and his demon hunter instincts are warning him to be very careful from now on, as there is a demon nearby. Hyunjun stabs one of his men, who notes that he knew he was a piece of shit that was obsessed with money, but to think he would go to this extent. Hyunjun tells him to just die quietly, as they were the ones that worked for Kinver in order to get more money. Huaigang watches all of this with a tear in his eye, as he is extremely scared for the demon-possessed person that is right behind him. When he gets the chance, Huaigang bolts out of there and thinks that he knew previously the Supernova Guild was filled with killers, but he didn't think that they would also slay their own men based on baseless accusations. He needs to leave as fast as he can before he is their next target. Suddenly, he trips on a branch, but before he falls, someone from the Explorer Alliance stops him and asks if he is okay. They reassure him and tell him if he's afraid, he may have a seat and rest for a while next to them. Huaigang thinks that even someone as crazy as that guy, who killed his own teammates, won't be able to do anything against the entire Explorer Guild. He accepts their offer, and thinks that now, he is spared. The Today Arcana news outlet deployed drones all around the island and broadcast it to everyone around the world. As they can see, the archipelago is separated into 10 islands, and apparently each one has a hidden treasure, ready to be found. The ways to obtain such treasure is different from island to island. For example, one might need to defeat the island owner, a powerful boss monster, or solve a hidden puzzle. And now, they have reached the final island, where a lot of players and guilds have gathered. Suddenly, the Shining Guild also arrives, who has already taken 2 treasures, but that was to be expected. Gaeon, who is also there, has also taken a treasure, and beside them, there is the Inazuma Guild, which couldn't take any treasure, as Gaeon took the one they were aiming after. The Berserk and the Rising Sun Guild, which are apparently rivals, also arrive, so all of their viewers should stay tuned for this mighty final battle. That's when somebody arrives that silences everyone. The mighty Lionheart Knights have arrived to the scene, which surprised every single player and guild there, but when they see who is leading them, they get even more surprised. Naturally, it is none other than Granfell. They all look at him, and notice how confident and calm he looks, like he is sure that he will be taking the last treasure with him. Lee, however, is very scared, as he knew he would attract some attention, but still, everyone is just staring at him constantly, and he's scared. Every single player there talks about him, and Camilla notes that she is saying this only now, no matter what. She will not be fighting Lee, as she only has one life, and she wants to cherish it. Lee stands behind Granfell like a scared cat, and wants everyone to stop looking at him like this, as if everyone finds out he's actually low level, he will be cancelled. Harcom suddenly notices something, and tells Lee to dodge, now. The earth beneath them opens up, and magma flies all around, as the earth cracks and cracks, leaving many to just fall into the fiery pit. Out of it, the island owner, a great lava koi, which is level 420, gets out and starts spreading lava all around itself. One of the players notes that they can't hope to attack this thing, as it is covered in lava, so they need to just watch right now. Every single player there tries to coordinate themselves to the best of their abilities, but even if they hit it with all they got, the long-range attacks do nothing, as the lava simply swallows it all. Even Taemin can't seem to approach the beast, and the new outlet records all of this while brining the drone higher into the air as to not get it damaged. From above, it can be seen that the koi has created a pool for itself, where nobody could realistically approach it. Harcom asks Lee if he's okay, and apologizes, as he promised to be his sword, but he doesn't have a way to even strike that beast. Granfell smiles, and notes that he worries far too much for somebody so prestigious. He did not lead them all of the way here without a plan. He puts his hand forwards, and that's when Lex notices that, even in this most dire situation, Lee is still smiling. Just what does he have in mind? While preparing his magic, Granfell thinks that magic activation could be divided into 3 important steps: inspection, interference, and most important, manifestation. The lava around the koi fish is not a skill, and it's merely a part of nature. Thus, lava, which is only just a force of nature for him, is no different than the rocks on the ground. He picks up all of the lava in the pool, and everyone is left speechless, to the news people, to Chiolman. Lex can't help but smile, as he wonders, just where did this guy come from? The news outlet notes that this is an unbelievable and rather amazing sight. The path to the island owner is now open for everyone. Harcom laughs and charges forwards, as he needs to do his share of work. Lex notices, and thinks that he spaces out for too long. He tells the Shining Guild to charge as the path has opened. They all charge, and Kiolman advises Taemin to get in there and at least get some contribution points, and maybe even get the first attack bonus. Suddenly, the koi fish jumps high into the air, and to everyone's surprise, slams back on the ground, sending everyone back from the impact. Leonie notes that it is very annoying for a single fish, and that they should be careful, as it is getting ready to jump once again. The news outlet says that due to how powerful this fish is, the fight will be a long and treacherous one. But that's when the lava that was formerly liquid is now a solid, and it slams into the koi fish into the form of spears. They all look at Lee in wonder once again, as something like this shouldn't be possible. It's like turning water into ice. A change so big shouldn't be possible with the limits of mana set by the system. Granfell tells Harcom to charge, who does so immediately, and kills the koi fish in a single mighty strike. Every single player gets the message that the koi has been defeated, and Lex thinks that for the first ranked guild to not even have a single contribution point, such shame. The news outlet screams in joy. The island's owner has been defeated, and the one with the highest contribution rate is of course Lee and the mighty Lionheart Knights. He cannot believe how relaxed he is. He defeated the boss so easily. In actuality, Lee is basically dead already, and Granfell has his eyes rolled back as he is trying to not pass out due to the lack of available mana. The island's treasure suddenly appears in front of Granfell, and everyone eagerly watches to see what he gets from it. Granfell gets to opening it, and everyone is surprised when the destruction progress rate does not pop up. Is this perhaps not the island treasure, but something else entirely? However, suddenly the destruction progress rate appears and fills up once again, which also surprises people. Why was it late? Or were there more treasure around the islands? Lee is weary now, as there is no way that Granfell advanced the destruction after taking the treasure, as the treasure itself is still a shining blue. However, he feels that extremely strong demonic energy. A different treasure has been taken by greed once again. The rest of the Explorers Guild and Huigang watch in horror, as Hyunjun has killed most of the other NPCs, and has taken one of the island treasure for himself. They are all teary-eyed from losing their comrades. But they must stay back, as this man is far too powerful for them. Hyunjun looks at the treasure with a wide expression, and his head starts to hurt as he tries to fight back. What is happening? His head is feeling heavy, and he didn't mean to do any of this. Not at all. The demon comes next to him and asks what he means by those words. He himself said that he wanted this, so he has helped him like a good demon should. He does not even have a skill for him to take, yet he has helped him get what he wants. Since that is done now, it is his turn to take what he wants and needs. Hyunjun feels like he's being swallowed into a sea of nothingness, a darkness that would take down even the most valiant of men. Suddenly, a member of the Lionheart Knights jumps into action and pushes Hyunjun back, while asking Huigang if he's alright. He thinks that, if they are here, it must certainly mean that he is also here. Lee, who notes that it smells disgusting around here, probably because of the demon. Huigang is still amazed that he is here, although he expected it, and wipes his tears fast. He apologizes for having his viewers wait for so long, and announces that the #1 Lee fan stream is now starting once again. Granfell is suddenly hit with a strange sensation, as the Lionheart soldier asks for orders. A class quest is created for him, and Hyunjun is being engulfed by a sea of red demonic energy. The system warns them that Yusra Archipelago's evil is brewing to the point of no return, and everyone there watches in horror, except Granfell, of course. Suddenly, the island's treasure rises into the air and breaks above Hyunjun, who is by now just a soulless puppet. The system warns them once again, the island's treasure is being corrupted by greed. Lee knows what this means, and the conditions pausing confirms it. The destruction meter is full, and so the destruction is beginning in full. As the archipelago destruction begins, every single guild feels it, and when they look in the direction of this immense aura, they all see a gigantic hand that breaks off into multiple, and they invade every single inch of the island, and the ground shakes heavily as it does so. Eventually, the hands now touch all of the little island around, and the reporters see all of this, being rightfully scared of this situation, and they also announce that slowly, the island is being merged into one. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a gigantic building appears in the middle of the island, and even Harcom is surprised at what he sees, an entire castle made completely out of gold. This makes the other players there think that this is simply another treasure, waiting to be taken apart and enjoyed. But Granfell knows that thing is named the Castle of Greed, and is the home of one of the 7 deadly sins, greed. It also has a very ominous aura that the others should also feel, but it seems that they are more fixated on the gold. That's when he receives a quest notification, specifically, that the quest was paused, which surprised Granfell, as he thought that quest was failed. Harkham suddenly announces to everyone that something really bad is coming and that they should prepare for battle, right now. That's when hands start appearing from the ground, as the vengeful undead rise from the ground, ready to feast on some long-awaited flesh. The reporters are very eager to show all of this, since it means that their viewership will skyrocket. But suddenly, the chief receives a notification on his phone, and when he sees it, his smile drops. He tells the other reporter that this is not the time for laughter. Somewhere else, at the Arcana building to be exact, the employees panic and run all around, with the newbie and the experienced employee, who is named Sook, trying to contact someone. Eventually, he gets into contact and explains that they saw the update, while the newbie rages. They need to stop everyone from entering or leaving, lock the whole damn island down. He should look at the levels of the enemies. It's over for those inside. Granfell decides to look at the updates, and sure enough, the boss monster, Greed, is level 650, with this zombies being level 500. While the others fight in front of him and are desperately trying to defeat the over-leveled enemies, the class quests continue to be spammed in front of his face, which he finds very annoying. He walks forward still, and while he does that, he thinks that this quest is quite impossible, as even the lower-level monsters are a challenge, but the boss is literally level 650. Harkham tries to maintain a sense of formation and calamity with his soldiers, but Granfell suddenly comes behind him and calls him out loud. Harkham looks at him with a widened expression, and Granfell asks if the oath that he had made previously is still valid. He thinks that now, of all times, he needs to depend on Harkham in order to be able to even try something. Harkham asks if he really wants to fight this, as the enemy is one of the 7 deadly sins. All of their lives are in danger at this point. Granfell proclaims that demons are meant to be defeated, and only that. There is no other option. They all need to be annihilated. This statement surprised Harkham, but he smiles, as he doesn't see a lick of fear in his eyes. He is a true warrior. Indeed, Granfell is not fearful, but Lee is, very much so. Harkham calls out his Lion Knights, and explains that from now on, they stick to their oath, and help their savior reach the evil, and free this island forever. The soldiers immediately get into formation, and are ready to defend Granfell with their lives, in the name of the Lions. The people who watch all of this, including Huigang, are amazed, because from what it seems, Lee and the Lion Knights will attempt to go into that castle, being stopped only by the countless undead horde. Granfell orders them to charge forwards, and at the Arcana building, everyone sees that some crazy people are trying to get in. This because of the reporters, who are also quite shocked by this, but report it nonetheless. Everyone in the country watches as they go in, at home, at school, or even on the street. This legendary moment is televised for all. Granfell and Lee analyze the situation, with both of them thinking that the Lionheart Knights are doing much better than originally expected. But they are the best knights on the entire continent, so in combat, they will not fall behind, no matter what. Their mana is also recovering really well, and at this rate, he will be able to help with this battle too, instead of saving for the final boss. That's when Granfell notices a sudden movement behind him, from a body that was previously killed. Shrake is being pestered by one of his guild members, as they will get 0 contribution rate if they don't go in too. But Shrake explains that if they do that, they will just end up dead. If they are being real, this situation is impossible, and no other guild will be joining them in this do or die mission. That white-haired guy will fail soon, and then, they will all fall back. Behind Granfell, the undead that were previously defeated rise up to fight up once again, and this is bad, as he does not have enough mana to defeat them right now. But still, he must fight. Suddenly, a beaming light passes Shrake, and both Leonie and Taemin have come to help Lee. That's when they notice each other, so this wasn't coordinated, and the other guild members rush to help them. With that, the temporary Greed Extermination Alliance is formed. The reporters note that this alliance was not expected at all, but is it a coincidence? As both guilds have been helped by Lee numerous times in their respective ruptures, Lee wonders if they will really help them, and Granfell doesn't ask but announces that they will help, something which shocks Lee, as that is no way to ask for help. He needs to do it nicely. Granfell then says that he will only say this nicely once, which makes Lee even more crazy, as this guy doesn't know how to communicate at all. Leonie looks at him like a sad puppy, and notes that they came to help anyways, since they have a debt to pay with him, but he really likes being an asshole. Kjolman on the other side tells his brother that this is the perfect chance to make a good impression on Lee, and get closer with him. With that, for their own reasons, they both look at him with a manic look, something which Granfell doesn't really care about. The undead resurrect once again, and everyone around begins fighting them, with Taemin calling up his saints, as they need blessings and protections in order to efficiently deal with these ugly things. Lee thinks that this will cut into his contribution rate, so he needs to buff the Lion Knights too, so that he can push forward. That's when Granfell goes to Leonie, and explains that the Lionheart Knights need protections and blessings too, and he doesn't have any of his precious tea to give her. But he needs buffs, so she should hand them over. This leaves Leonie quite stunned, and Lee apologizes. But that's when the Lionheart Knights are being buffed, by none other than the Gaon Saints, who urge them to fight under God's protection and win. Leonie is quite mad that the Gaon Guild did it first, and Taemin congratulates his brother for the swift steal. With the blessings, the knights have more confidence, and they charge in once again, in order to fulfill their oath. Granfell thanks Taemin for the help, as he will remember it, and Taemin happily notes that it was nothing. Perhaps he needs other buffs too? God's blessing or protection, whatever he needs, their saints will surely have it. Granfell, however, refuses, as he doesn't believe in something as idiotic as the idea of God. With that, he walks away, and Lee tries to kill him from embarrassment, but to no avail. It seems that Harkam has heard him, and is quite surprised, but suddenly, something deep from deep inside him calls his name, and he remembers his king, and how he also said that he doesn't believe in God anymore. Harkam's eyes glisten as he sees this vision, but that's when two dark hands reach out to him from the castle's golden doors, and the others notice too, as Harkam is slowly consumed by the dark energy. He finally remembers the promise he made to his king. Way back then, Harkam announced to the king that the general of the demons has been seen in the northwestern valleys, and he, along with his knights, will be on their way if he is willing to give out the order. The king thought about it, and said that if it's the commanding general of the demon army, thousands of soldiers will die at their hands once again. He slowly walked to the window and explains that the demons appeared out of nowhere, and the explorers vanished without a trace. The mage's tower, which had been investigating all of this, has also been destroyed. And if that wasn't enough, the people of the nation have also disappeared, almost as if they were swallowed by the earth. Since then, he asked God every single night, why has this world come to an end? Is this really what he wanted to happen all of this time? However, he has not received an answer, not even once. He was ignored. If that's the case, maybe God also vanished, along with everyone. He asked Harkam what he thought about it. Has God really abandoned them? Harkam looked at him, and noted that all of this is because of the demons. God has not abandoned them, not at all. The demons are the ones that are blocking their path to God. He, Harkam, will go and defeat the commanding general of the demon army, and open up the path to God once again. The king looked at him, and said that it was all okay, since he no longer believes in God. However, all is not lost, as he believes in him more. With that, Harkam and his knights went and fought, a gruesome battle that saw heavy casualties from both sides. Harkam commanded his troops with great passion, as their king was waiting for them to come back home. While he was fighting another demon, he noticed the general, and rushed to kill him, but the general just smiled, and said that it was far too late for that. That's when he and his soldiers were all engulfed in a blue light, and slowly, they were transported somewhere else. That place being Earth, where everyone immediately started to take pictures of the battle-worn men. Harkam was extremely confused, but in his heart, he knew that he had to return to his king, no matter what, and fulfill his promise. The evil energy that is now consuming him gives him the vision of what he wants most, his king, who stands above him in a saint-like position. Harkam's voice cracks, as he notes that he has been looking everywhere in order to find him. Where has he been all of this time? He apologizes for being ever so late, and promised that he, Harkam, will become his sword once again, and slaughter all of the enemies that stand in front of him. Lee is extremely surprised, but it can be seen, clear as day, that Harkham was consumed fully by something and is being tricked. While Harkham slowly walks towards them, his soldiers wonder what is going on, with Leonie being extremely annoyed that they are facing one problem after another. Lee thinks that he is extremely unlucky, as the strongest knight in the continent just got possessed. He also notices that it must be some king of status abnormality, probably mind domination, which will be hard to deal with depending on the situation, of course. In a split second, Harkham disappears from their eyes and gets behind Granfell, ready to take his head off at any moment. Before he can do that, however, Taemin punches him away and asks him if he's all right. However, instead of thanks, he receives Granfell's glare, which surprised him. Cheolman scolds his brother for overdoing it as he just beat one of Lee's most prized party members. But that's not the reason, as Lee is completely out of it, since he almost died. Suddenly he snaps out of it, reminding himself to thank Taemin later, and looks at Harkham, who is being pushed back by Enoch, who urges him to wake up, as he doesn't want to fight them, and they all need to return together to their king, right? This comment enrages Harkham further, as what he sees them as is demons, and demons are not allowed to talk about his king, ever. Both Enoch and Jessica try to get him to his senses, pleading with him to see past the lie, but Harkham thinks that this is only the demons playing tricks on him. So he gets into position, and tells to be silent in their final moments. Perhaps then they will not be punished as hard. Lee suddenly notices a strange light, and Harkham charges in, hitting the ground just in front of Enoch. But it doesn't stop there, as he once again jumps into the air and smashes with all of the strength he can muster into the ground, creating a large crater at the landing location. The wind alone pushes the weakest of the guild members out of the way, with Taemin and Leonie barely holding onto the ground. With one powerful thrust, Harkham pushes through all of them at once, and when he gets in front, he unleashes a mighty power, as his sword crackles and emanates tons of energy. Once he unleashes that power onto the ground, it is sent all over the ground, breaks it in countless pieces. The reporter drones scour the land for survivors, and Leonie seems to have made it out alive, even though she barely did. Jessica is also found to be fine, even though she got separated from Enoch, and the healers rush to aid everyone that has been injured in the attack. Taemin is also safe, but was injured, and think that Harkham should be considered a monster, not a human, given just how powerful that attack was. While he talks with Cheolman, that's when his eyes widen as he looks at something. Everyone starts to, including Enoch and Huigang. What they are looking at is Granfell, who stopped Harkham from hitting him with a single hand gesture. The Lion Knights wonder how he managed to pull this off when they couldn't, but even though they look cool, both Granfell and Lee almost pass out from fear. Harkham looks at him with a strange expression and asks what he is. Among the others, his silhouette is bright and pure, nothing compared to the demons among him, who are all blurry and vicious. Granfell would like to answer, but he doesn't really know, as he doesn't see what he sees. But it's probably because he's a demon hunter, and it could be an effect from one of his skills, probably. Harkham asks him to reveal his identity, or he will have to kill him too. Granfell thinks that if he doesn't say anything, he will die, so he must speak now, even if he doesn't know about what. He tries to speak, but he is too shocked from what just happened, so he can't speak at all. Harkham asks him once again to speak, or perhaps he cannot. To him, though, it doesn't matter, as he will slay him either way. Suddenly, in an act of desperation, he reaches his hands forwards, which stops Harkham, as he wonders what that really means. Is he perhaps trying to tempt him into something? Granfell then points at him, and directly at the brooch, which Harkham sees clearly. That's when he remembers everything that happened, how Granfell saved them, and how he swore his sword to him, like he did his king. Suddenly he sees Lee once again, in his full form. Lee didn't do all of this because he know, but he was basically telling Harkham that he was no danger and actually a friend, which he is very glad about it working. His exorcism ritual skill goes up, and a new feature is also added. Suddenly, Harkham looks behind and tells Lee to watch out as the dark energy comes to him. It tries to consume him, just like it did Harkham, but he doesn't know that he is a demon hunter. Before Harkham can fully warn Granfell of the danger, the evil energy engulfs him, and he is transported someplace else, where he spots a single man standing alone on a simple throne. Lee notices that this is his mind realm, and that the person standing there must be one of the 7 deadly sins, greed. He explains that all he wanted was to keep his kingdom safe and prosperous. his beloved Yusra kingdom. In the past, it was beautiful and bountiful, no matter land or sea. The land was also filled with sparkling jewels, and the people loved each other without prejudice. It was peaceful, heavenly, and everyone was happy. However, one normal day, a stranger washed up on the beach. The people of this kingdom were kind, so they took care of the foreigner, and they sent him back peacefully the moment he was fully recovered. But that wasn't paid back properly, as what they got back for it was an invasion. The people here did not know how to fight, and so the invaders trampled over everything in this entire kingdom. The king asked them, what was the reasoning behind all of this? If they wanted the jewels, they could have simply shared them with them. The invaders laughed, as sharing is a coward's move. They could just have it all if they just stole them. So what is the point of sharing in this rotten world? That is how the king became greed incarnate. That is why now, he reaches for Granfel's neck and screams that everything is his, and only his. The island, the ocean surrounding it, and the sky that gives light. Even if this island is filled with great treasure and mighty enemies to defeat, everything is his, all his. Suddenly, Granfell interrupts his villain monologue. He's being quite a drama queen over some pocket change. This, coming from a trillionaire. This confuses Greed, as he didn't expect someone to answer in this way. Granfell explains that all wealth is in vain, and he will be the one to teach him well. That the only thing that can be stolen is pride, his pride. Greed snarls at him, but in that second, Granfell unleashes his aura upon this dream world and breaks out of it. Harkam asks if he's all right, but he doesn't have the time to answer, as he searches with his mana for the palace's foundation. When he finds it, Granfell disrupts it, causing the entire palace to start cracking, which makes everyone around him widen their eyes with shock, as they haven't seen something like this ever. Eventually, the whole palace crumbles into bits, and now everyone knows just how much of a beast Granfell really is. Lee notices that they barely have any mana left, but Granfell taunts Greed to reveal himself, as they are not finished yet. He should see just how pointless his wealth really is. He should look at the ground, where his soldiers lie, as they have sacrificed themselves to protect him. How can he dare to call himself a ruler, in spite of all of this? Suddenly, Greed's true form appears, and he asks how he, a puny mortal, dares to destroy his palace, his wealth. He dare challenge Greed, of the 7 deadly sins? A mere human? Dark energy starts surrounding everyone around the place, and the other players notice that this is a status abnormality, which they think that they can tank, but suddenly their chests tighten, and they cannot breathe. This is because Greed is watching them very, very closely, as he will make all of them into undead, so that they can protect his wealth until the world ends. Taemin reaches for his sword, as he thinks that he would rather die now than become an undead soldier. But his judgment is impaired, and he cannot hold back any longer. Suddenly, Granfell screams at him once again, and the dark energy that was engulfing everyone disappears in an instant. Granfell stands ever so proud, and Greed asks how he broke through his mind domination skill like this. He is one of the almighty 7 deadly sins, Greed, and he is just a mere human. Granfell tells him that he is neither greed nor a cardinal sin. Suddenly, he chooses the Vampire Count Orb as an offering and activates his exorcism ritual skill, which is now level 2, and its passive is to prevent status abnormalities from overtaking nearby allies. Granfell orders him to wake up, as he is the last king of the Yusra kingdom. It is finally time for him to correct his mistakes and become pure once again. Greed laughs maniacally, as a simple attack like this will be extremely easy to dodge for someone as great as him. However, deep down inside, he knows already that this is enough, as his palace has already been destroyed, a long time ago in fact. With that, Greed explodes from the neck down, and everyone watching is shocked that he once shot the boss. Their celebrations are cut short, however, as the king of the Yusra kingdom is now bowing down to Granfell. He notes that he shouldn't be here, as he eliminated himself with Greed. So what is happening? He asks Granfell if he is the one who fought Greed, but he can't really hear him, as he is leveling up constantly. The king continues to pour his heart out to Granfell, but due to the leveling up and a hidden quest popping up, he can't hear anything. However, he is extremely surprised when he sees that the hidden quest has a 9-second timer, but all he needs to do is give the Yusra Kingdom King a crown. But where should he get a crown? While they both rack their brains for answers, the island's treasure he got before pops up again. The broken crown of the broken king. The item appears before them, and the reporters are having a field day recording all of this, as there are tons of questions left unanswered, which racks up tons of views. Suddenly, Granfell pulls the crown out of his inventory and bestows it upon the king. His body starts glowing a bright blue, and Lee is very glad to have picked up that item from the turtle previously, as he thought it was just useless. So it's nice to see it actually had a purpose all of this time. With that, he has fulfilled the conditions of the secret quest, and the archipelago's secrets will now be fully revealed. Every player on the island gets a notification that somebody revealed the secret, and they start bickering amongst each other instantly. As they wonder if it was a guild, the stakes become even higher, as Huaigang's chat blows up, because everyone received the notification. This is something extremely rare, a worldwide message. The whole ground starts to reveal itself in a blue color, as the ancient kingdom of Yusra is revealing itself fully. The whole island glows, and out of the ground come tons of buildings, and the whole atmosphere of the place changes. Finally, the hidden Yusra kingdom has been discovered once again, in all of its beauty. Everyone is left awestruck, but the reporters focus more on Granfell and the mysterious man, as it must be quite important. Granfell looks at the now gliding king, and Lee wonders what's happening, and why it's happening so suddenly. The king bows down to him, and introduces himself as such, and also gives his name, Hakuna. Granfell has now become the savior of this kingdom, with his affinity and influence being maxed out, and now he has authority over the kingdom. Hakuna expresses his deepest thanks for saving the king and the kingdom. They're all surprised that he's the king, but Leonie's guild member wonders if she should try to seduce him, which kind of freaks Leonie out. They all listen carefully, and Hakuna finally asks Granfell for his name. Lee thinks that he should speak formally, as the man before him is a king, even if his kingdom has been forgotten. Granfell doesn't really care, and just casually introduces himself as Lee. They are all surprised by his way of speaking, but Hakuna is unmoved, and notes that from now on, his name will be remembered for generations. The others are once again surprised by the king's formal speech, but alas, Hakuna explains that, when he was engulfed by greed, he said that it was about time he should correct his mistakes, which Lee cringes over. After hearing that, he decided to self-destruct and take greed with him, but he saved him, and also gave him back his crown. Suddenly, Harkham starts seeing his own king in him, as they share the same elegance. Hakuna asks, what was the reason for rescuing him like this? What is it that he wants to do so badly? He is a king with no subjects, as he killed all of his people with one single mistake. Somewhere else, Shrek's guild runs in the kingdom's direction, as this is a national-level event, as an entire nation just appeared on Earth, and it will be their El Dorado. His mind is filled with greed, as this place most likely has tons of it, and they need to grab the chance and make as much profit as humanly possible. Granfell thinks of an answer, and notes that he thinks it's only right that he reconstructs this entire kingdom. Everyone is quite surprised that he said that, including the king, who looks down and asks who will follow someone like him, who has turned his back on his people once already. Granfell tells him that it depends on what he does from now on. In order for him to regain his pride and correct his mistakes, he will help with it, no matter what. Hakuna smiles, and says that it's as if he is reading his mind. Granfell didn't do that, he just read the quest window, which had these exact words plastered on it. When Hakuna tries to announce that it will be so, Shrek arrives and agrees that such a mighty kingdom should be rebuilt, and they, the Second Sun Guild, will help with everything. He scooches around everyone, and that's when he spots Lee, and notes that he heard a lot about him, while also thinking that it would be best for him to get acquainted with this person. He starts shaking his hand with great fervor, but that's when he notices Granfell's expression and thinks that he probably shouldn't have done something like this. Everyone just keeps quiet as this happens, but Harkham comes around and tells him to stop, as this is extremely rude. Granfell gnarls at him, not because he is angry or whatever, but because he literally almost fell asleep. His eyes won't even focus at this point, and the person in front of him looks like a bunch of hand-drawn cartoons. Granfell ignores him for the time being and turns to Hakuna, as he has an offer for him. Everyone watches silently to hear what it is, especially the reporters, who are now basically at the movies. Later at the Berserker headquarters, Leonie reads the news about what happened. Gaon and Berserker will work together to rebuild Yusra. Harkam decided to stay there, and Shrek was ignored and treated like an invisible flea. This makes both Leonie and her member burst out in laughter. One of the members comes back with ice cream and asks why the others are so cheery. The other explains that there's an article on Shrek and how he was humiliated. Sure enough, when he goes to watch, he starts laughing too, as this is quite amusing. At the Gaon headquarters, people are also laughing at Shrek and his past internet activities, which were very cringe. But Chaelman is just happy that his brother got them a quest to rebuild the Yusra kingdom. Taemin just did as he said, but Chaelman is still glad and wants to kiss him, which Taemin immediately denies. One of the members wonders why they are so happy. Is this rebuilding quest really that awesome? Another member explains that it's not just that, it's the first ever kingdom that has appeared, after Arcana began updating into reality. Once the reconstruction is fully done, the value of that place will be priceless. He's also sure that there's a buttload of people who are trying to get on good terms with the kingdom, Shrek being one of them. Its value is so high, solely because it's the first national-scale update to the world. Plus, the kingdom is known for its resources, so it has tons of potential. If one accumulates enough influence and affinity with the kingdom, it's possible to even get a noble title after the reconstruction is done. In another place, tons of players run towards Lee as they want to get into the reconstruction project, all for different reasons. Mostly greed. Lee escaped all of them by hiding in a nearby wall, but he is extremely tired and thinks that he won't make it home if things go like this. Should he just take a nap at the mage's tower instead? Suddenly, Jessie appears in front of him, which scares the ever-living crap out of Lee, but Granfell just remains plain-faced. Jessie practices her new Korean greeting she learned. Step 1, to not wear her hat when doing it. 2, to put her hands in front, and 3, to bow down, as to show respect. All of this comes a bit crooked, but even in his extremely tired state, Granfell finds it very polite. He tells her to take a seat, and apologizes that he doesn't have any tea, as apparently, they do not do rocket shipping to the mage's tower. Jessie notes that it would be bad if he were to be hit by that, so she will protect him, which makes him even more tired, so he asks her to get to the point. Jessie starts ranting about the magic he used, as she watched a few videos of him in action. Due to all of this explaining and talking, Granfell becomes even more tired, and her words start blending together. Today was a long day, and tons of things happened, so he needs rest, but he wonders when he will get it. Jessie finishes her thesis on his powers, but Lee doesn't respond, as he's fast asleep. Jessie notices that his hair is in his eyes, which is disturbing him, so she leans over the table and fixes it for him. Eventually, Granfell wakes up and wonders if that conversation was a dream, but it seems that it wasn't, as Jessie left him a letter. It was rather rude of him to fall asleep with somebody in front of him, but he couldn't help it. The Marcello research quest pops up, as a new condition was formed, to convince the senior mages. Granfell wondered when this would happen, as he got into the mage's tower basically for free, so some kind of test was surely line up for him. But why now, as they are both extremely tired, even after they've slept a bit? He invites Marcello in, who announces that he has something to say to him. Granfell says that he already knows why he's here. He needs to prove himself. Isn't that it? Marcello wonders why his hair is like that, but apologizes, as it's because of him that the people are also doubting him. Granfell tells him that it's not him who is lacking, so he should guide him, as if they don't believe in him, he will make sure that they do from now on. One of the senior mages, Belia Yusia, sits in her class, and thinks that it's a shame that Lee will never prove himself to be qualified, as the 3-tier ceiling magic that was cast by 3 senior mages will not allow him to enter the room, and he won't even find it in the first place. Belia sits idly by and waits for Lee's imminent failure, as he can't hope to ever get past that door. But she is very wrong, as Lee instantly reaches for the door handle and enters, which shocks everyone there. Belia is the most surprised, as that man just destroyed a 3-tier ceiling magic with ease, something that even Marcello, who is the head of theoretical studies, couldn't do. Granfell notes that it seems someone is trying to be funny today, as they are playing tricks on the doors. This overwhelming atmosphere washes over the listeners, while Granfell continues speaking. He came all of this way, solely because it seemed like they all wanted to meet him in person. But if they are going to waste time by playing petty games like this one, it must certainly mean that they are ready to take responsibility. Isn't that right? He stands over Belia, not because he wants to intimidate her, but because they both fell asleep, which spooks Belia. They wake up shortly after, and Lee thinks that he needs to go and sleep right now, as this is too much, even for him. Granfell, while leaving, announces that he will let them go this time, but he promises that this will be the last. Belia is awestruck and can only grin, as this man just called a spell that even she can't do anything to, a petty trick. Suddenly, one of the mages there remembers something important. That explorer that just came in is the same one that Cleo mentioned, the one that attended the academic society without an invitation. They begin talking to each other, and Belia is even more concerned now. Was that really the same man that saw through the Tower Master's illusion magic? While Granfell sits down, and Lee can barely hold his eyes open, they receive a quest notification that 3 out of the 20 mages accepted him. They both think that it's fewer than originally anticipated, but it's fine, as they are all senior mages, who are basically at the peak of their respective magic schools. So 3 for just opening a door is pretty good. He's a demon hunter anyways, so he's not in a rush to impress these fools. While they both think of just sleeping at this point, a parchment with Marcello's face appears and calls out for him. He explains that this is a useful item, called a magical parchment. It's a message device that mages often use around here, and if he wants to reply, all he needs to do is talk with the parchment. Granfell grabs it and sees Marcello's smiling face, so he hesitates for a bit, but eventually musters up enough courage to speak. When he does, however, Marcello tells him that he doesn't need to be so close, which naturally makes Granfell drop him in the garbage. Marcello rises up from his rightful place and explains that he's here to apologize. As he heard what happened at the Crystal Hall, the others played a trick on him, which is unacceptable, so he came to apologize for their sake. A head mage is somebody who has reached the peak of magic, regardless of their school, and the senior mages want the head mages to consistently prove themselves worthy of such a position. Lee wonders if it's like how bullies at school fight to be the top dog. If it is, then he feels sorry for Marcello, as he might have it pretty tough. Marcello then says that this incident is no different than what usually happens. He was tested only because he's not good enough, so he apologizes. While he ignores Lee's fan fiction, Granfell notes that he has not a thing to apologize for, really. A noble like himself must also prove himself constantly, so that they are recognized. He is no stranger to tests like these. Marcello still feels worried, as he might be underestimated because of him. Lee suddenly freezes, as he knows what's about to come, and can only despair while a short silence falls. If Granfell hears the words underestimate, then he is about to say something extremely cringy. He does just that, and notes that if others underestimate him, he only needs to prove himself. And when people do the opposite, overestimate, he only needs to make it a reality. If anyone is doubting him, he can only continue to prove himself, like a leader, like he has always done. These words seem to touch Marcello, and he says that he was rude as well. He should have talked to him in person, rather than speaking through this parchment. Granfell tells him that it's fine, but Marcello insists and insists, until eventually, he announces that he will come there right away, and Lee can only cry, as this means his rest is even further away. Granfell sighs, and thinks that at this rate, they will get to sleep once they are dead. But still, earning the recognition of the senior mages is a tall order. As a beginner mage, or not even that at this point, it's going to be quite difficult for him, and also, he's only level 226, and the senior mages are all at least level 600, so he is nothing more than a beginner to them. However, he will not let something like that drag him down the depths of despair, as being able to prove those who underestimate him, and making overestimates of himself reality, is something quite special. He uses a bunch of spells to create beautiful scenery, and they both agree that this is the pride they share, the thing they have in common the most. Lee smiles while watching the lights, but suddenly starts throwing up, as Granfell has used too much magic, so even a simple spell like this one is making them almost faint. Marcello arrives, and Granfell welcomes him inside, despite being half alive. Somewhere else, at a construction site, Taemin and Chilmin see that the people are doubting Lee a ton, and they are both confused as to why. When Marcello enters the room, he starts looking around the place, and Granfell asks what's wrong, as he seems a little distracted. Marcello asks if he used any magic recently in this room, which makes Lee think that it smells like it's burning, and Granfell explains that he was just practicing a bit of basic magic. He promises to not burn the lab down thought, so he needn't worry. That is not what Marcello was concerned about, however, as there are tons of magical traces inside of this very room. Magical traces only occur after a spell has been cast, and these traces tell of what kind of spell has been cast, and how it was cast. Suddenly, Cleo also comes inside of the room and notices how beautiful the traces here are. Suddenly, tons of others mages charge inside of the room, all with their theories about how the traces were made. Lee and Granfell both wonder just why there are so many people gathered in one place, and surprisingly enough, even more arrive, as the traces are just that pretty. Pretty enough to win the 823rd Magical Traces competition, which is apparently a long-time tradition. Marcello explains that this is Lee's doing. He is the one who made this. But when he tries to present him, he is just gone, as he ran away as swiftly as humanly possible. He runs with his life on the line, as these mage nerds will never let him rest at this point. He must retreat. Unfortunately for him, a group of wacky mages appears and stops him, as they want to give him a challenge. To solve this Rubik's Cube, apparently one of the hardest problems to solve in the Mage's Tower, with the current record being an entire 9 days. While they brag about how difficult it is, Granfell snaps his fingers and uses reversal magic, which completes the puzzle instantly. While he descends the stairs, the quest pop-up appears, with 4 more mages being convinced. Granfell thinks that this might be easier than he originally expected. But before he can celebrate too early, tons of reporters stand at the end of the stairs, and they do what reporters do best, ask dumb questions. But they all bring up one thing, the issues that have been brought up with him. Granfell says that they are extremely rude, and that he has no obligation to answer their moronic questions. But that's when the mages appear from behind, and start asking him questions too. Since he is now in the middle of a pincer attack, Lee just panics, as he wonders about how to get out of this hell. That's when they both notice that the mana flow on a nearby wall has changed, and thinking that this is their only chance, they jump in and seemingly disappear, much to the dismay of everyone who was chasing after him. He ends up in Belea's office, but she half expected this, as she opened up that door, allowing him to come in, but he found it much earlier than she thought, as expected of someone so skilled. Lee remembers her, and wonders if she really did this to help them. But Granfell explains that he only felt the wall's mana being tampered with. This is the same with the Tower Master's illusion magic. He felt something strange about that wall, and inspected the mana to turn it back to how it was originally. Belea tries to hold it in, but can't help herself, so she starts laughing quite loudly, which makes Lee think that it's because of the way they talk. That's when she recites Granfell's speech, about underestimating him, which makes Lee almost die from the dangerous levels of cringe. But this also proves to be useful, as Belea notes that he's probably the only one that thinks the Tower Master's grand illusion is so simple. Alas, she also introduces herself, Belea Yusia, the head mage of the healing school. Since Marcello has also decided to recognize him, she will do so as well, and the count rises up to 8. Finally, they get home, and Lee reads about what the reporters said about him. He thought he was in trouble at first, but this is all just pointless gossip, with the Gaon and Berserker guilds also coming to his defense, explaining that he did all of that by himself. However, one issue still stands. Why are they not sleeping yet? As a clear result of constantly finishing the class quest, they now have 33 stamina and 35 agility bonus points as a result, and he's ahead of same-level players by around 10 to 20 points, give or take. This is a big step up for sure, but to a demon hunter, these two skills are completely useless. Lee thinks that he would rather have mana, but it would also be nice to have something for close range, something like that sword aura Harkam used when fighting him. While Granfell cuts up some carrots, Lee thinks of how that ability went, which makes Granfell also think about it. And suddenly, to both of their surprise, Granfell uses the same ability and destroys the kitchen sink, while also creating a large hole in their apartment. At the Yusra Berserker reconstruction unit, Leonie watches something on her phone with a pretty mean look, which the guild members also notice. The first video is from Today Arcana, with the reporter noting that they don't have any conclusive evidence that Lee was the one who did everything. The next video is Huigang's live stream, who is protecting Lee with his life, as he saw himself how he took the cardinal sin down on his lonesome. The next video is a masked figure, who thinks that this is all a great conspiracy, and that Lee is just a government plant sent to indoctrinate all of them. All this combined makes Leonie smash her phone and scream tons of not-so-family-friendly words, which comes as no surprise to her guild. But her other female member comes around and asks why she's so mad. Leonie explains that it's because these losers are talking crap about Lee, even though he was the one that killed the boss on his own. This makes the guild member think that she's getting angry for his sake, which makes her blush hard, and so she starts proving that she isn't, which all but confirms that this is what was happening. The two male members note that she must have quite a hard crush on that guy. It's about time she had some action. These comments make Leonie bury them in the dirt, and the female member tells her to calm down, as this is all just gossip that will disappear soon enough. She also tries to make Leonie laugh by saying that if they raise their influence in this place, they might get noble titles, and then even the most powerful guilds will have to pay her respects. Sure enough, imagining this makes her crack a smile, but this also makes her think that this reconstruction quest is a good opportunity for them, as it's a natural treasure island where they can earn resources without going into a rupture. Even just the rights to develop a mine around here will be extremely pricey, so why did Lee give them this opportunity? She notes that they are now even more indebted to that guy, who is literally below them and wearing some cool glasses. While here, he checks his messages with his landlord, who is quite mad that the apartment was damaged, but Lee promised to pay the repair fees by himself. This was quite the mess though, as it was nice to see that they can use the sword aura, but not being able to control it is extremely bad, and as a result, his HP went down quite a lot, and they were both passed out for 6 entire days. Additionally, there's no info about something like this on the internet, so he will just have to ask Harkam about it. Suddenly, 2 guards stationed at the entrance stop him, as the Yusra kingdom is currently under construction and only those who are permitted may enter. Does he perhaps have a permission slip, or is he a resident? Granfell notes that he has neither, so the guard refuses his entry. Lee thinks that this must be one of the Arcanians that moved here, and he's glad that he's enjoying his new job. Granfell says that he's only here to meet with Harkam. Is there really no other way to meet him? The guard looks at him for a second, then his expression becomes crooked, as he cannot let such a lowly peasant meet such an important person. It's just not possible. Granfell then asks if it would be all right for him to at least send a message, but the guard refuses outright and tells him to stop speaking so informally, as he's clearly not on friendly terms with Theme. There are countless like him though, rude explorers who don't know their place. Suddenly, Hakuna arrives and greets Lee warmly, which makes the guard's face drop instantly. With that, his authority has been activated, and he is entitled to stay here as long as he wishes to. Hakuna asks what brings him around these parts, and Granfell explains that he has business with Harkam, but it seems like he needs permission to get in. Hakuna is quite puzzled by this, as he should have the same authority as he does around here. What king needs permission to enter their own kingdom? Granfell thinks that it just activated, but it doesn't matter, as he has some business to attend to now. Somewhere else, on a stunning beach, Jessica trains the other Lion Knights, while Granfell talks with Harkam and announces that he wants to learn Sword Aura. He explains that he wants to control it better, as he is also able to do it. Harkam is surprised, as this is something that he had to train for, and it took a lot of time. However, he cannot help him, as Sword Aura is not learned simply because one wants to. He is also a mage, so even if he can see the Sword Aura now, he will need to train a lot before he can manifest it. Granfell notes that when he said he can use it, he can use it. He can manifest it fully. What he really needs to know is how to control it. Harkam immediately calls Jessica over and orders her to bring him a sword and an Oath of a Lion. Eventually both things are brought, and the Oath of a Lion seems to be a giant stone slab with a lion face on it. Harkam explains that this is a relic that has been passed down for generations, and it's made out of a metal that does not exist in this world. It's unbreakable, and represents their oath because of it. One of the 2 sword slashes on the lion face was made by the first captain, and the other one was made by him. He hands Granfell a sword, and tells him to etch a 3rd slash in that metal, if he can really manifest Sword Aura, that is. Enoch tries to stop him, as this guy isn't even a member of their order, but Jessica stops him, as this must be a part of their leader's plan. Granfell rejects his sword, and notes that he will be borrowing one of these instead. Harkam thinks that this is just a plain training sword, which is also dull, so what is he doing? Granfell then starts unleashing his sword aura, and a blue light emanates from his location. Then he strikes the slab so hard it cracks, which shocks everyone, including Enoch, who did not expect that much power from a mage. Granfell asks if this is worthy enough, but in reality their HP was drained quite a lot. The reason why Granfell refused Harkam's sword was not because he deemed it too unworthy, but because it had a level limit of 600, because it's a legendary sword. The training sword had a level limit of 200, perfect for him, but it surprised the others. As to them, it is just a toy. Not for Granfell, however, who thought that it was extremely heavy, and he was barely able to strike the stone. Harkam, naturally impressed by his potential, noted that it's time to train him, and also noticed that he is trembling, surely from excitement, right? That's when he ordered Jessica and Enoch to train with him, as he will need to start with the basics of swordsmanship. And with these two outstanding teachers, he will have a good time. However, he must not use sword aura from now on, until he permits it again. Both Lee and Granfell are glad, as they really needed to learn the basics. That is how Granfell got into basic training, which Enoch isn't happy with, as he's a mage, who has no reason to learn the sword. But still, he treated the captain with respect by not picking up his sword, so he will be sure to show him some too. Jessica introduces herself and tells the trainees to prepare their bodies, as this training is quite harsh. With that, she sends them off to change into their training outfits, but thinks about Lee. Although he has manifested sword aura by himself, he is still a mage at the end of the day, so if he lacks stamina, he will not be able to use sword aura in any situation. She will work him until he can't stand up anymore. Granfell comes back, and that's when his real muscles reveal themselves, which Jessica likes a lot, to say the least. With a blush in her face, she tells everyone about holding their swords, and Enoch instructs each of them when he spots them doing something wrong, as the rest of the trainees are extreme noobs who have barely held a sword before. While they don't pay attention to Granfell, he thinks of how Harkam held his sword when they fought. His attacks felt very heavy, but also fast, and most importantly, strong. He realizes how to do it himself, and strikes the ground, which creates a large shockwave that, needless to say, leaves everyone speechless. Enoch asks how he did it, and Granfell explains that it's simple, he just imitated Harkam. Jessica noticed too that it was their captain's swordsmanship, but that is the final step, that the Lionheart Knights have been aiming for years. However, this mage reproduced it after seeing it 2 times. She previously thought that he was just a lucky mage, but now she sees him for what he is, a damn genius. Harkam watches all of this from a distance, and thinks that Lee is a talented fellow, who may even surpass him one day. It would be a shame if he wasted his talents by being a mage. They will guide him, so that he doesn't get lost in the magic world. Hakuna also comes around, as he has heard his savior is starting to learn how to use sword aura. But is there not too much sand on this beach? What if his savior damages his bronchial tubes? Harkam immediately looks at his men and orders them to sweep every single grain of sand from the beach. Are they planning to give Lee tuberculosis? After they are done, Hakuna complains about the sun, as it is too strong. Will his savior not faint from heat stroke? Harkam looks at his men once again and orders them to grab as many trees as they can and plant them in the sand. Harkam is surprised that Hakua was so concerned about him like this. Truly, he is a paragon of the people. Seeing this, he cannot stand idly by any longer, so he removes his armor and announces that he has been too lazy lately, and as such, he will be joining them in training. They should not feel pressured and treat him as a new soldier. Naturally, this puts a lot of pressure on them, and they say that it's better to hear the new soldiers' opinions too. Harkam says that they are right, and asks Lee if it's alright if he joins. Both Enoch and Jessica stare intently at him, but Lee doesn't care, and says that he will always welcome him. He doesn't stop there, however, as he tells Harkam that they should invite Jessica and Enoch too, which angers them to no end. And so, began the most awkward training session known to man, but they eventually got through it. At the Mage Tower, someone knocks on Mathis Dean Carl's door, who is the person who brought black magic, which was considered evil and unorthodox, to its current position. And had it not been for Marcello, he would have become the tower's top mage. He welcomes the knocking person inside, who gives him some of Lee's items that he requested to be appraised, as they seem to be related to black magic. Mathis notices that indeed, these are dark items that not just anybody could get, and requests some parchment paper, as he would like to write to Lee. Eventually, the night training is finished, and the other trainees are beaten. But Granfell isn't, as he's still doing pull-ups, much to Lee's dismay. He blames all of this on Harkam, who wanted to do 120-kilometer laps, but Lee was the one that instigated all of this. Suddenly, the system congratulates him for completing a training that surpasses his limits, and as such, he will be rewarded, with stats, that is. Lee feels euphoric after seeing this, but before he can convince Granfell to sleep, a parchment from Mathis arrives, as he has appraised the items he requested. First is the vampire orb, a magical tool used by demons. This item is extremely rare, so he would like to rent it for research. Lee thinks that he can't use it anyways, so he allows it. Next is the pure emerald crystal, which recovers vitality, but it can also be used to produce jewelry. The last item is the koi scale silk, which is a good material that can be used to create items, and he also wants to borrow for a bit. Granfell notices that it opens an aesthetic stat, so he doesn't allow rental, but he would like him to make a handkerchief using the crystal and silk. Mathis accepts, but it will take some funds too, but Granfell doesn't mind, as he wants the best results. Mathis is impressed by this, and Granfell falls asleep, much to Mathis' dismay, as he wasn't done talking, so he leaves him a message, to meet him in the floating garden. At dawn, while everyone was sleeping, Granfell was already on his training, and on the verge of finishing his 20-kilometer run. Another parchment from Mathis comes, who is worried that he didn't contact him, as he left him a message, but they did not see it, so he is relieved that he wasn't insulted by it. Mathis invites him to the garden once again, but Granfell refuses. Mathis tries to reschedule the meeting time and time again, but Granfell refuses. Mathis thinks that it must be a test of etiquette, but Granfell is still refusing him, as he needs to focus on sword training now, and cannot waste time on personal meetings. However, he will have some time today from now, for about an hour, which Mathis is glad for, but they were going there in the first place, so it matches up. Harkham watches from the distance, as he is glad to see Lee so dedicated to the sword. The next day, Harkham pulls Lee away, and tells him that he can no longer teach him, as he has gotten to the stage where he can only learn from real fights. Lee is surprised by this, as he has been learning for just one day, and Granfell also seems scared by it. Harkham explains that he underestimates himself too much, and that he should show him his aura again. Granfell agrees, and thinks that he should control it as much as he can, but that's when he wonders, what is sword aura anyway? It's not a skill, as it can be mastered by every class. Suddenly Lee feels it, that it has a very similar flow to mana, and if he uses it as he uses magic, he can stabilize it, and he does just that. Lee has finally realized that sword aura is similar to magic, and if he applies all of the magic rules, he can stabilize it easily. Harkham congratulates him for being devoted mentally, as this is what he needs to handle sword aura in such a way. However, he did not expect it to be this clean, so he invites him, time and time again, to walk the path of the sword. Granfell refuses, but if the path he is walking has a sword, then that just may be his path. Lee tells him to leave before he dies from cringe. With that, Harkham wishes him farewell, but it seems that the trainees heard their conversation, and they get hyped up. Jessica is kind of sad to see Lee advance so easily, as now, the gap between her and the greats seems even larger. However, something in her refuses to give up, and she promises to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Seeing her, Enoch gets hyped too, and Harkham is glad to have had Lee around here, as he has changed everyone's perspective. Lee walks through the forest, but wonders if it's safe, even with his newly acquired skill. Suddenly, a silver mane leopard appears, a level 300 beast, that Lee is extremely scared of, but Granfell is angry, as this beast dared to show its fangs. He activates his sword aura and prepares to fight. Nearby, Kichi, the Shadow Mercenary Troops captain, finishes her slaughter, but unfortunately, she is the last member of the troop, as the other 9 are missing. That's when she sees Granfell challenging the leopard and thinks that it's unfortunate. Even if he can use sword aura, the opponent is too tough, as he's the field boss of this island. It's a relief for her, as she doesn't have to deal with it. She would have helped, but she promised her colleagues a better place to leave, and this place seems to be the best. Lee thinks that now, he's into it deep, as he can't do anything against this beast. The moment he moves, he will be decimated. But he can't just wait, as sword aura consumes tons of stamina. Lee thinks that they can just block its movements, but Granfell doesn't want to, as he wants to use the sword only. The leopard attacks, and Lee uses these last moments to apologize to his family for dying. That is not what happens, however, as Granfell strikes the leopard even swifter, despite there being a 74-level difference. Is this really the power of the sword aura? Granfell notes that this was just a warm-up, but his stamina is already depleted, so Lee tells him to calm down. At the floating garden, Mathis waits for Lee, and thinks that he's a renowned person by now, so he would also like to see who he is. Eventually, Lee arrives, and Mathis invites him to sit down, while also thinking that the earth was shaking while he was walking towards him. Truly, he is no ordinary person. Granfell exchanges pleasantries, and Lee notes that their muscles hurt extremely badly, as Granfell decided to test out tons of stuff using sword aura, and his body is trembling. That is why he has to flex his muscles like this. Suddenly, Mathis's rings glow a black purple. These rings are used to sense black magic. So why have they activated now, and with a color that he has never seen before? Granfell wonders what to do, and Lee really wants to sit down. In the past, Mathis was bullied for his studies in the dark arts, but he firmly believed that all magic must be studied, so he took it upon himself to prove that dark magic was useful too. This led to him having an audience with the Great Hall, where he presented the usefulness of the dark arts. But he was met with mockery and anger. They did not accept him. He pleaded with them, as with this magic, they might even solve the problem of worldview interference. The president, who was also there, was not swayed by the opinions of others, and asked him if he had named this magic yet. Mathis confirmed that he did. It is called black magic. From that day onwards, other mages began to accept black magic. But that glory did not last long, as Mathis couldn't solve the view interference problem with the black magic. After a few years passed, the Mage's Tower manifested on Earth as the worldview interfered, and this caused Mathis to live the rest of his days in shame, as he could not do what he promised. However, he did not expect to meet someone with so much black magic sensitivity. With this man, perhaps, he will be able to do what he couldn't do alone. Granfell tells him to sit down, as he doesn't have that much time to talk, and the tea is getting cold already. Mathis explains that the rings he has detect black magic sensitivity, basically the person's talent, and he has not seen such a deep color before. Granfell asks what black magic is, and Mathis notes that it's quite different from normal magic, that explores and interferes with the target's mana. Black magic uses inner darkness as mana, and so, it's different. This black mana is created through the years, and manifests stronger the darker a person's past is. If he has such deep dark mana, he cannot imagine what kind of life has lived in the past. Lee thinks that indeed, he had a dark past, as it was utter cringe, but perhaps it's not because of him, but because of what happened to Granfell's family. He notes that this is unpleasant, as his etiquette is lacking. Does he really ask everyone he meets about their past first? Mathis apologizes, as he did not perceive this as rude, so he will report himself to his superiors and receive proper judgment. Granfell says that his apology was enough, as an investigative mind is a scholar's virtue. He does not dislike a scholar who is devoted to his duty of black magic research, like he is. However, if dark magic is so different, can it be used even when the normal mana is exhausted? This tells Mathis that he is interested in black magic, so he tells him to walk the path of dark magic, much like Harkam did with the sword. It seems that he has proven himself to Mathis, and with his objective completed, he walks away, as he doesn't want to get dragged somewhere else. Back at his laboratory, Granfell receives tons of messages from different mages, and with them, the quest is completed. It rewards him with relationship and status within the Magic Tower, which Lee enjoys, as they are extremely useful, but Granfell doesn't care, and they both start to research a new function within the system. The news starts talking about the Yusra Kingdom, and about the two guilds that are rebuilding it, Berserker and Gaon, which has already risen to 3rd rank. Kjolman and Taemin watch this, with Kjolman noting that they have to repay Lee for this favor one day. Taemin thinks that he's right, as their guild is rising solely because of him, and if he hadn't helped them many times, they would have been in a really bad spot. Suddenly, Kjolman read about mythology and wished they would cooperate. They seem to be as childish as ever, but this time, even a National Assembly member was involved. Taemin notes that these members of the National Assembly have tons of time if they do this, but if mythology competes for 1 end or 2nd place in the business world, does the National Assembly move on money alone? They both don't know how they manage to get their pockets so full, as it remains a mystery. In an apartment, one of the assembly members is bewitched, and his soul is being extracted by the mythology guildmaster, Baek Yiseol. She calls her secretary and tells him to cancel all of the plans for tomorrow, as even if she had an important meeting with a certain person, he should tell him that it's cancelled, and that she left for the Yusra kingdom, as she wants to meet a certain somebody. At the Mage's Tower, the feature that Granfell unlocked is related to it, but he doesn't have time to check it, as his phone is being spammed by his sister. Before he can check, a parchment arrives, from the head mage Maya, who excuses his rudeness, but he wants to do a joint research. Suddenly another parchment arrives, and tons more arrive. Doing what he does best, Granfell ignores them and runs away. At the Yusra kingdom, which now has a palace, Hakuna laughs at Lee's explanation. He must have really needed that peace and quiet. Hakuna tells him to not be bothered by their attitude, as it's their way of showing sincerity. Granfell notes that he does not like bribes, even if they come in the form of sincerity. Hakuna laughs once again, as this must be why he defeated the cardinal sins so easily. But did he see that video, which shows him actually defeating greed? This is the first time he hears this, but before he can check, his third sister calls him, so he picks up. When he does so, she starts reciting the cringy words he said to Hakuna, and even shows him the HD video, as they all mimic him. Granfell thanks them for watching, and closes the call. Afterwards, he requests a place to rest. When he arrives at that solitary place, he immediately becomes comfortable, and prepares some tea, while searching for the exact video. He finds it, and thinks that he might just sue them for putting it without his permission. But that's when Granfell feels something strange, but similar. Dust, so he must get to cleaning. At the Gaon reconstruction base, Taemin is shocked to see that their stock fell hard, and Cheolman explains that it's because mythology spread a rumor about them again. He thinks that this is their way of saying that they need to share the Yusra reconstruction quest. But when did they gain this much influence? While Taemin continues to scream his heart out, he can write fake news too, about their guildmaster and how she has a mole hidden on her body. Suddenly Yiseol hugs him and asks how he knows about something like that. He seems to know things that even she doesn't. How interesting. Taemin wonders how she got in, as the guild members must have been standing guard, and when Keolman goes to check, he finds them unconscious. He hopes she knows what attacking guild members means, but she explains that she didn't attack, she just let them fall asleep. Suddenly, Keolman is suddenly engulfed in a strange but familiar feeling, and the dots finally connect in his head. Yiseol became this powerful and rich, not because of her connections. Taemin screams at her, as she's really crossing the line this time. Keolman's thoughts continue. The reason she was able to become like this is because of mind domination magic. That should not work on players, but it does. He tries to warn his brother, but he cannot, as this is just like the time he got possessed by the damn imp. Out of nowhere, Granfell arrives, who notes that he just finished cleaning, but the smell around here is not refreshing at all. He walks up to Yiseol and tells her in her face that she's a demon. Granfell slowly removes his mask and notes that he just got down cleaning, but the air isn't refreshing at all. He just can't stand something like this. He approaches Taemin and shows him the video of him fighting the cardinal sin. He truly is a demon, who likes to upload videos of others because he enjoys the shame they will receive. Taemin is quite surprised by his words, and he tries to explain it, while Yiseol watches all of this, and thinks that this is quite the nice opportunity she has here. She was going to get her information from the Gaon Guild first, but to think that Lee really came here on his own. People do call him the Light of Yusra, but seeing him for the first time, he's rather disappointing. Is this really the same man that defeated a cardinal sin on his own? She calls him over and introduces herself as Baek Yiseol. She is positive that he has heard about her being quite interested in him, right? Yiseol thinks that this is too easy, as soon she will have all of Yusra for herself. Men are so easy. Men are so easy? Jump on her in the comments, guys. We should cancel this shit talker. Suddenly, Granfell slaps her hand away with great prejudice and starts talking to Cheolman, as Taemin can't explain anything even if he tries. Cheolman explains that there have been false rumors spreading about him recently, and there are articles saying that he only gave the special Yusra privileges to the guilds he was really close with. They could not sit back and watch while everyone was defaming him like this, so they decided to upload the video. They did it with the intention of clearing up any and all rumors, but he didn't think that it would be embarrassing for him, so he would like to apologize for the entire guild. When Granfell tries to respond, Yiseol grabs his attention and asks him, just how can he be so impolite to her? This treatment, how is she supposed to interpret something like this? Granfell turns around for her and notes that, for her information, he is now speaking to the Gaon Guild. Did she think that it is polite to interrupt conversations like this? Yiseol says that it's the other way around, as she was the one who was talking with Gaon first, so he is the one that is interrupting. She thinks that this man is not that easy, but it's fine, because to a succubus like her, humans are just very easy prey. Even someone like the legendary Lee can't hope to resist her charms. She touches his face and uses her skill on him. Granfell immediately receives the natural enemy skill buffs, but as he looks into her eyes, he knows that he cannot do, as this is too much. The streamers start to go rabid as their view counts continue to rise and donations keep pouring in. All they can think about now is fame and money, something that nobody can contest. Granfell is very disgusted by their awful behavior, and Yiseol lets out a long sigh, but restrains herself and tells Lee that they won't be able to talk properly if the situation has become like this. That shouldn't stop them though, so they should take this somewhere else, as she is sure they can talk about lots of things. Without a single ounce of consideration, Granfell refuses on the spot, leaving Yiseol and the streamers stunned. Ha ha ha, we all knew Granfell is not a simp but a gigachad. She wants to say something but stop herself before the words can come out. Granfell explains that if she wants to talk, she should make an appointment first, as he doesn't have time for people who do not know what manners are. The streamers continue recording, as this is some very premium content right here. Yiseol versus Lee. Yiseol is South Korea's #1 corporation head, the Mythology Corporation's daughter, and the current Mythology Guildmaster. She is popular everywhere, with over 60 million followers on Instagram alone. She is the most popular celebrity of this entire era. Whatever she does, be it wear, drink, or holds, that thing becomes a trend and is sold out within a few minutes at most. She is the sole reason Mythology's slogan is, "Sold Out Mythology," and now she is basically running Mythology by herself. Everybody likes her, everyone wishes for her validation, and everyone wants her. So why is it that her seduction did not work on Lee, and videos of her rejection are uploaded everywhere on the net? She stands in front of a broken mirror in her apartment, while cursing Lee for everything that he is worth. Like a maniac, she promises to kill Lee no matter what, and destroy his life as he knows it. Suddenly, her reflection tells her to stop, or rather shut up, as she was the one that practically begged her for help. Yet now she wants to play around like she is the owner of this body. Does she not remember clearly? She was the one who asked for help. She asked for salvation. All she wanted was revenge on those who looked down on her and hated her for what she was. She promised that she would do anything for it. Yiseol suddenly pulls closer to the mirror and explains that she did not wish for any of that. She just forced her. It's not Lee that should die, it's her. The succubus asks what she's talking about, as she couldn't have gotten where she is without her help. Even her damn father calls her a mistake, and truthfully she is. She should show some humbleness and thank her from the bottom of her heart. Suddenly, Yiseol grabs a broken mirror piece and stabs herself in the neck with it. She continues to do that, while the succubus wonders just how she is taking control of her body back. She asks if she's out of her head. Just what will she accomplish by doing something like this? She needs to stop now, as this much would have killed a normal person. That's when the succubus gets it and asks her, why is she doing something like this? Is something lacking in her life? She has more wealth and fame than anyone. She did everything she wanted, and got everything she wanted whenever she wanted. She made it so that no one can belittle her again, as she wished. From behind her, the real Yiseol appears and explains that she was the one who did all of those things. Even if she thinks that's not true, everything she did was only possible because she is Mythology CEO's daughter. That is why she is so afraid right now, because it doesn't matter if she possesses someone else, because she knows full well that without this position, she is nothing. The succubus tries to plead with her once again to stop, but Yiseol does not listen. She possessed her because she is afraid to be on her own, but unfortunately for her, she is not. Yiseol stabs herself in the stomach and thinks of the moment when they tried to seduce Lee. When he looked into her eyes, he saw through her easily, saw who she really was. Even his farewell pointed to it, as he knew this entire time. Having had enough of this charade, the succubus takes full control of the body once again and waltzes through the apartment while swearing revenge on that Lee bastard who planted the seed of suspicion in her easy prey. Now though, she needs to heal herself, By absorbing something, anything would suffice at this point. She gets out of the apartment where a guard waits for her. When he sees the state that she is in, he immediately tries to get her to a hospital. But the moment he touches her, the succubus goes back to her original form and absorbs everything there is from him. Later, while Granfell is resting at his Yusra home with a cup of tea, his natural enemy skill activates, which makes him say that sneaking around in a person's home without permission really is rude. But it should come on in, as it's not the guest he was expecting, but he promises to be nice. Lee just stands there while he waits for the door to open, but after a few moments, he thinks that it's safe, as not even demons would dare to visit at such late hours, right? Suddenly, the succubus appears out of the window and congratulates him for being so sharp. Granfell wonders if showing up through people's windows is the only way for her to enter the house, considering how mannerless she is. The succubus enters the house and remembers that he said something about manners before, but she apologizes as she seems to have forgotten everything. Granfell looks at her deeply, but cannot sense the real Yisiol anymore. Was she perhaps sealed or something? He tells the succubus that he cannot see Yisiol anymore, which makes her explain that most likely, she has died. It is not her fault though, as she suddenly started stabbing herself like a maniac, so she probably died from shock. Even she can't feel her anymore. But what can they expect from a little freak like her? She was always a stupid woman, who threatened her like she would have been able to do something. More interestingly, it seems that she has died because of him and his actions. She kept going on and on about how he was the only one that saw through her. The reality of Yisiol is that she was always a bastard. Eventually, people found out that the CEO of mythology had a hidden daughter. She was only 8 when everyone came to know about her. But that didn't stop the media from belittling her, what they do best. At school, the situation was the same. She was bullied, and her neighborhood became hostile to the once kind and innocent Yisiol. Eventually, her mother decided to off herself because of the depression she got from everything, and her father said something quite hurtful in a press conference. Even if she is a bad mistake, he cannot let this child grow up without any parents, so he will graciously take her in. The succubus begins laughing maniacally, as she considers all of this extremely funny. A few years later, she awakened as a player, so her father forced her to work tirelessly in the ruptures. She didn't even try to put up a fight and did everything she was ordered to. Why? Because she wanted to be loved by anyone, even if it was that bastard of a father. She was going to stand up for herself and prove to the people that were looking down on her that she was worth something. That is how she wanted to get revenge for her mother. However, in the end, she was not able to do anything. She even said that she was going to pay him back for believing in her. Just how dumb can one woman be? Suddenly, Granfell's expression changes and he orders her to shut it. She dares try to talk with him like this, when she is but a mere demon? Her arrogance truly knows no bounds. The succubus begins being watched by Lee, and her mentality begins to deteriorate. She cannot shake the fear off of her, and as a result, the fear status abnormality is activated on her. Granfell tells her to get out of his way, as he does not speak with his prey. Lee is transported somewhere else entirely, which makes him think that it's a part of the exorcism ritual. But when he looks behind him, he sees child Granfell, who is happily living with his family. Is this Granfell's mind realm? Out of nowhere, his chest begins to tighten, just as if someone is squeezing it hard. The memory suddenly changes, and he spots Granfell looking down on his dead family, with him being the only one left remaining. Lee thinks that the feeling he has must have been what Granfell felt right here. It's as if they are synchronizing even further. Now he can understand his rage. The rage that made him swear to kill demons for the rest of his days. Granfell asks the succubus how she dares to insult the pride of a human. How dare she laugh at a human who risked everything to try and pay back a favor, and for not losing her pride, even when a dirty demon like her tried to play tricks. The succubus cannot hope to fight him now, so she bows down and notes that she will pay for her heavy sins with death, as that is the only way to pay them. With one strike, Granfell finished her for good and asks Yisiol if she is still there, as he has seen her pride, which was amazing. Yisiol begins crying, which makes Granfell say that it's late, so she should go to her own home and cry there. But unfortunately for him, she falls asleep on the spot and falls on him. He remembers what the succubus said about her stabbing herself, but he doesn't see any injuries, so she must be really tired, that's all. He should just lay her down somewhere. The door suddenly bursts open, as the Lion Knights have sensed a demon around here while making their rounds. That's when they find Granfell putting a blanket over Yisiol. They apologize, as they did not know he had a girlfriend here and that they were having a good time. Granfell tries to explain, but his voice just doesn't get across. Enoch also sees this, and as a result runs away crying, like he was Lee's lover or something. This whole event leaves both Granfell and Lee very tired, as fighting the cardinal sin was easier than this misunderstanding. He strangely receives another class quest and thinks that he doesn't have a good feeling about it as he opens it. At the AAU Korean branch, another update is announced, which will add a new region, the northern city, Frost. Everyone thinks that this is amazing, as Frost has tons of shops and other accommodations for players, while streamers like Hwygang are glad to finally have a Metropolis update, since those places are really huge. Everyone seems to be talking about the new update with a positive outlook, but Lee is probably the only one who is worried, as the class quest he received involves Frost and the Demon King inside of it. Lee is spooked by this and tells Granfell to warn everyone about it on the forums, but Granfell just thinks about the good time he had at Akshan. Demon Kings are the real sword enemies of all demon hunters. They are natural enemies. Back in the Arcana gaming days, during Demon Hunter training, the teacher told Granfell that Demon Kings are not just strong, they are very strong. There are lots of them too, and even the lowest ranking Demon King could put a few demon hunters in trouble. So he needs to be prepared. He gave Granfell an entire encyclopedia of demons and told him to memorize literally everything, as he is going to test him in 2 hours. Lee thinks that the quest was a waste of time, but Granfell notes that their reward was the knowledge they received. Suddenly, Lee notices that he received a comment on Granfell's warning post, which just said that there's a Demon King there, so they should be careful of NPCs. Lee thinks that he wouldn't take this seriously either if he wasn't in this position and jumps in bed, as Frost is a metropolitan city, so nothing bad will happen, as even a mighty Demon King will not be able to do as he wishes. He tries to ignore the fact that Granfell posted what he posted with every possible excuse, thinking of tons of other things that he can do in Frost. But eventually the embarrassment catches up to him, and he starts rolling around in shame. Suddenly, a bird with a very deep voice appears and announces that it has a delivery from the Mage's Tower for Lee Hoyol. Lee confirms that he is that person, which makes the bird drop the package in his hands and leave while damning the person who hired him. Lee thinks that these must be the items he requested a long time ago. So Granfell opens the package, and the first thing he finds is a pure emerald ring that has the effect of regenerating HP when attacked. This item is nothing short of amazing, as it has no other conditions. He only needs to be attacked. What an amazing item. But it's to be expected of the Mage's Tower. Lee thinks that it must have been very expensive, as he remembers that healing items are worth billions, so he starts checking his account with bated breath. Meanwhile, Granfell checks the other items they got, a koi scale handkerchief, which increases the wearer's affinity with fire and evades all attacks within a certain possibility. It is so bright that Lee is almost blinded, but he also did not expect to get a masterpiece level item. As far as he knows about masterpiece items, they are worth trillions sometimes. He remembers what Granfell said when he requested the items, that he does not care about the price. He just wants the best there is. Lee holds the production fee request and thinks that his life is officially over. He wonders what will happen if he can't pay everything off. But that's when he unlocked the aesthetic stat, as Granfell just equipped the handkerchief to see how nice it is. Seeing that Granfell actually likes it, he puts all of the points he has from exercising the succubus into luck and prays for everything to turn out well, while Granfell continues to browse the items that Marcello sent. Suddenly, the class quest he got is postponed, as there is a preceding quest he must complete first. At the Inazuma Guild, the main player is berated and belittled by the CEO, who is mad that they lost to Gon in the guild ranking, which is very shameful. They should be ashamed for their awful performance. The Inazuma leader promises to fix everything and walks away from the fight. One of his men tries to ask if he's alright, but he notes that Frost appeared in the sea near Hokkaido, but they are the only guild that knows, and the government will also help them stall time, so they should make sure to raise their influence with Frost. The member says that blocking other people from going in Frost isn't wise, as they don't even know it is safe. What if it's not like how they remember it? Suddenly, the Inazuma leader punches the wall next to him and says that Frost is a city for barbarians. Since Gaon is the #1 barbarian guild now, they cannot let them inside until they get a hold of Frost. He tells him to gather everyone they can to come to Hokkaido, and also tells him that he should watch his behavior from now on. The analyst notes that he will keep that in mind while texting someone the location of Frost. This message was given to a news outlet, who immediately posted about Frost being near Hokkaido. The news spreads like wildfire, and even streamers find out very early on where it is. The northern city called Frost is a city where one can obtain the barbarian class. It was one of the main bases when Arcana used to be only a game. There are blacksmiths, NPCs, and different stores fitting for such a big city. However, this is not the only reason that people are getting so excited and calling it the comeback of humanity. If the contents of the city are the same as it was in the original game, then this city will be of great help to the players. At the gate near Hokkaido, the Gaon Guild arrives, but they are denied entry, as they do not have a passport which does not allow them entry into the gate. This prejudice is not limited to only the Gaon Guild, as everyone else is also denied entry, and nobody knows why. Inside of Frost, the Inazuma Guild rush to build relations and such with NPC, or get all of the quests, but when they arrive they find only death and suffering, as the Frost they once knew is now riddled with corpses. Before they can react, gigantic demons begin attacking them, and without any way to defeat these beasts, it seems that the Inazuma Guild will disappear. Thank you for watching. See you next time.